tap dance, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do it. The meeting will come to order. Please take your seats. I know we still have a number of people checking in, so I'll try to stall for a bit of time here at the beginning. Good evening. Welcome to the special town meeting of February 15th, 2023. I'm Tim Goddard, your moderator. Every town meeting must be called pursuant to a warrant issued by the Select Board, and this is no exception. So we'll begin by reviewing the return of service of the warrant. And I've inspected the warrant and I've determined that it was properly executed by the Select Board and served by a constable of the town of Littleton. So we are now in session. We'll start this evening's proceedings with the national anthem, which will be sung by Mia Clements, who is a student at Littleton High School. You may remember that she did the honors for us at the last town meeting, and we're glad to have her back. And I think we're going to have you grab this microphone so you can take that to the center of the room, if you would, and take it away. Thank you, Mia.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mia. I think we'd like to have you back in May if you'll have us, so thank you. Okay, I know people are still checking in. I've got a few preliminaries before we get started. Just by way of a recognition, this past November, we lost a very special member of the town's family, Millie McGovern. And through her example, she set the standard and a legacy for town service and volunteerism over the past 6 decades, a standard that may never be matched. A partial list of her service to the town and other organizations includes the following: Special Police Officer, School Crossing Guard, Ticket Taker at LHS sporting events, Cable Advisory Commissioner, Election Warden, Garden Club member, Rotary Club member, one of the Grand Marshals for Littleton's Tercentennial Parade, and a Commissioner of the Littleton Housing Authority for more than 50 years. So I think, we take this time to recognize Millie, and we're glad we knew her, and glad for her service. And if you'd like to applaud, that's fine. I think I will. Okay, thank you. We come together tonight in this civil assembly as a community in a tradition that's older than our Commonwealth itself, to make decisions about our community. As we deliberate, let us advocate vigorously for our positions, but not at the expense of others. It's possible to disagree with others in an agreeable manner, respecting our neighbors' views equally with our own. Let us also remember that our neighbors with whom we may disagree are good people too, with hopes and dreams as aspirational as our own. Let us always remember that in the end, caring for each other in this community is of greater importance than any differences we may have. As you came in tonight, I hope you brought your town meeting report or picked one up, which is the gray newsprint pamphlet, and also this blue amendment handout, which has some last-minute changes to some of the motions that I'll highlight as we get to them. But it's kind of necessary to keep both in play, and I hope that you were able to do that on the way in. We have a few non-voters here tonight, and we've arranged for seating in the gymnasium for non-voters, and also through LCTV's efforts, set up a monitor so that they can both see and hear the proceedings of the meeting while it's going on. And we feel it's important to make it available to all. Obviously, non-voters cannot participate in the meeting, but that is available in the gymnasium for those folks. You'll probably want to take note of the emergency exits if you don't know where they are already. If you're in the bleachers, they're at either end of the bleachers in the back of the room, and the screens in the front may obscure them, but there are emergency exits in the front of the hall as well. And we hope it's not necessary to use them, but we now know that everybody knows where they are. In the past, we've used a procedure called the consent calendar, by which we bundled together non-controversial articles and took them together in a single vote. It's my intention not to do that this evening because there are only 10 articles on the warrant. And you may have noticed that slightly more than half of them are of the routine housekeeping variety, and there are at least 3 that are more substantive than that. I feel that we'll be able to handle the non-controversial articles in short order, and we won't take up too much time with those. That'll give us the balance of the evening to discuss Article 7, the Indian Hill land purchase, and Articles 9 and 10, the zoning articles, which I suspect many people are interested in. Okay, town meeting presentations, which we have a couple tonight, 3 I think, are limited to 10 minutes in duration. Debate is limited to 3, so if you go to center mic and you want to speak to a certain article, you've got 3 minutes to make your comments, and you can't speak twice on a single article. We've got to leave time for others to get to the microphone. You can speak once per article. We also have a rule that we will take up no new business after 10:30 p.m. unless town meeting agrees. We haven't had to invoke this provision at any point prior. It may happen tonight, may not. Normally, town meeting says we want to stay and finish. Nobody relishes the thought of coming back again for a second night, but we'll see where we are at that point. There are 3 articles that I referred to earlier that require 2/3 supermajority. The land purchase article, because it involves land and borrowing, is a 2/3 vote. Both of the zoning articles also require a 2/3 vote. Okay, when you do wish to speak to an article, please come to the center microphone, wait to be recognized, and state your name and address for the record. Remember that all questions must be made through the moderator, through me, and please no rude or disrespectful remarks, no direct references to any individuals, certainly not by name. And if there's a procedure called calling to question that sometimes comes up at the end of a heated debate, please remember you must use the microphone to make that motion, and it must be the only comment you make at that time. You can't make a speech and then close the door behind you. Okay, town officials who wish to express personal views should identify that they are speaking as an individual and not for their board. With that, I think we're ready to begin. So we'll start with Article 1, bills of prior years. And you'll see that the note on the blue sheet is the Finance Committee took a vote and unanimously supports this article as well. The motion is moved and seconded by the Select Board. The town vote to pay prior year bills as follows. KP Law PC FY22 Legal Services Bill $4,530.50 to be charged to, and then it gives the account it'll be charged to. Middlesex Veterinary Center FY21 Veterinary Services Bill 9875. Middlesex Veterinary Center 2 FY22 veterinary bills totaling $549.50, and then the account that it would be charged to. This requires a 9/10 majority, so nearly a unanimous vote. We quite often get a unanimous vote because these are vendors the town owes money to and they need to be paid, and town meeting usually recognizes that. So all those in favor of that motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, it passes by the necessary 9/10 majority. In fact, I declare it a unanimous vote. Madam Clerk, please so record. We'll move to Article 2. And there's a friendly amendment to the Select Board's motion on Article 2, and I'll try to incorporate that for you. And I think we're going to address your concerns with this, sir. Okay, it's been moved and seconded by the Select Board to approve Article 2 as amended. And the language you'll see, Section 41-1 dates when held. The annual town meeting shall be held on a weekday during the week that includes the first Monday in May at 7 p.m. And the annual town election shall be held on the Saturday immediately following the annual town meeting. So an individual brought to our attention that the time had been taken out of the motion, so this inserts back the 7 p.m. time frame for the annual town meeting. So that's the motion that is on the floor. And does the Select Board wish to speak to this? Or?
I don't think we need to.
It's fairly self-explanatory.
Hear the speaker.
Well,
Okay.
do you want to speak to the fact that it just makes sense to? No.
No, we're fine. No, we don't wish to speak.
Okay, very good. All right. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jim Carr, Elizabeth Street. So the warrant closes, is it 30 or 60 days prior to town meeting?
6 weeks.
I don't know.
45 days?
That was a question.
Warrant closes.
You need the mic.
Get the big guy.
Good evening, everyone. Tom Harrington, Town Council. So by statute, we need to post a warrant at least 7 days before an annual and at least 14 days before a special town meeting. I don't think we have a bylaw that requires any more immediate action than that. I think the board often does close the warrant before then, but it's not done so by bylaw.
Okay, so, but the board historically has closed the warrant so we can print these, correct? Once the warrant is closed, it cannot be reopened, correct? So, no? The warrant can be reopened? Okay, all right. My concern with this is, you know, we all have busy schedules. You know, for the board to be able to pick any of 5 days whatever you feel as if, well, I may not be in. Personally, I'd rather have one day. Now, I know Mondays have always been a pain. So I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Moderator, from the floor.
Okay?
I'd make the motion, the annual town meeting shall be held on the first Wednesday of May at 7 p.m. The annual town election shall be held on Saturday immediately following the annual town meeting.
Okay, is there
Switching it from Monday to Wednesday, figuring we could all have a schedule.
all right, that's your proposed amendment. Is there a second to that? Okay. The floor is now open to debate on the proposed amendment. You wish-
Can I?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Anthony Insaldi, Town Administrator. The reason that this article is even came about is because what we discovered is when we have a town meeting on a Monday, that means we have to set up on a Friday, and it closes this building to the students and to youth groups. So allowing the select board the flexibility in working with the school department to have it sometime that week, within that week before the first election. So we found Tuesday's a good day. We really, the concern about restricting a day is we have to still work with the school to make sure this is available.
So Wednesday will work.
Just allows that flexibility. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak to the amendment? Okay, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, through you to the previous speaker and to the body. The intention here is that we have the flexibility of the 3 days. It's not like we're going to arbitrarily try to pick a day that's going to trip anybody up, and we're all busy, right? And they're beyond being convenient for the schools and for the different events that are used in the hall. We have to get staff to come in on the weekends and set up to do this. If it is a Monday, your proposal being a Wednesday addresses that to some degree, but it doesn't give us the flexibility of having 3 potential days to do so. To your point earlier, is it 30 or 60 days? Typically, we do 6 weeks, 45 days, thereabouts, in order to allow for the flexibility to get these printed, to get the information out to the residents, so that everybody is well informed. So everybody will have that time, knowing that the town meeting is going to be one of those 3 days that week. So if there is any travel or anything that they needed to work around, they can do so. So I would recommend to leave it the way it is and to vote against the amendment that was proposed on the floor.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish? Yes. Please approach.
Joanne Deary from 211 Howard Avenue. I appreciate the idea of preserving flexibility for choosing the date, and maybe the concerns of the previous speaker could be addressed by committing to how many days in advance the date would be selected, 30 days, 40 days, 60 days, whatever it is. If that could become part of the language, then people would know they'd have advance notice and which day that it would be. So just an idea.
Thank you. Okay, I think we can move to a vote on the amendment. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment stated to set the date as the Wednesday in the first week in May, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed? No. Okay, I'd say the noes have it. The amendment fails. We're back to the main motion as amended by the addition of 7 p.m. To the language. Does anyone else wish to speak to the article? If not, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as stated and as amended, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Okay, it passes by the necessary majority, and I declare it to be a vote. Thank you very much. We'll move on now to Article 3, which is the reprogramming and rescinding of the Park Recreation and Community Education Enterprise Fund, and it's moved and seconded by the Select Board to support Article 3 as printed in the warrant. Okay. Does the select board have an explanation for why this is necessary, or maybe you want to? Okay, we'll go to the finance director, Alicia.
Good evening, everyone. This article tonight is rescinding the free cash vote you made at special town meeting in November. And instead of using free cash, you'll be using retained earnings from the Park Recreation Community Education Enterprise Fund. And then in doing so on June 30th, we will close out that enterprise fund per DOR as you voted in annual town meeting last year, a Parks and Recreation revolving fund, and they'll be using that moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this article? A little bit of housekeeping, financially speaking. If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. I declare it to be a unanimous vote. Madam Clerk, please so record. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Article 4. And it's moved and seconded by the Select Board to approve Article 4 as printed in the warrant. So exactly as it's printed in your handout, the white handout, not the blue handout. All right, and Select Board or Finance Committee, have any comments? Okay, Alicia, you're up again.
Good evening again. This article is for the compensation Schedule A that you voted in November at special town meeting. It affected the LCTV, Receipts Reserved for Appropriation employees. They were not a part of that original vote to be funded, and this will fund their salaries due to that new compensation schedule that was voted by you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Although I see nobody in line at the moment, so we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 4 as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? Okay, it passes by the necessary majority, and I declare it to be an affirmative vote. Thank you. There'll be no motion offered on Article 5 this evening, and so we'll be passing over Article 5. You'll likely see a version of it returning at the annual town meeting in May, but it's not quite ready for prime time this evening. So we're going to pass over Article 5. Madam Clerk, please note that no affirmative action is taken on Article 5. And this will move us to Article 6, Community Preservation Committee, amend the FY 2023 Community Preservation Fund budget. And you'll see that Community Preservation Committee, the Select Board, and the Finance Committee all support Article 6 as printed in the warrant this evening. Does Alicia, I'll try you first this time. Would you explain why this is necessary?
Yes, the Community Preservation Commission, we estimated the match at annual town meeting. The match was less and came out later than when it was supposed to come out, so we voted a percentage in anticipation. Now that we have the actual match, we need to move and amend the way the vote was and adjust the different balances.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone wish to be heard regarding Article 6? If not, we'll proceed to a vote on the motion as read. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it by the necessary majority, and I declare it a vote. Thank you very much. Which brings us to Article 7, proposed purchase of the Indian Hill Music School, 32 to 36 King Street. And there will be a presentation shortly. I'll read the motion to put it on the floor this evening. I think it's on your blue sheet, actually. It's has changed slightly due to advice from council. Moved and seconded by the select board that the town vote to, 1, acquire by purchase, gift, or eminent domain or otherwise, on such terms and conditions as the select board may determine, all or a portion of the property located at 32 and 36 King Street, Assessor's Map U42, Parcel 2-0, and Assessor's Map U42, Parcel 2-1, for general municipal purposes, and authorize the select board to accept the deed to the town for a fee simple interest or less, and 2, for the purpose of acquiring said 32 and 36 King Street, authorize the town treasurer with the approval of the select board to borrow $3,500,000 in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 7, Paragraph 1 of the Massachusetts General Laws, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. Okay, and you'll note that the select board and the finance committee both support this purchase unanimously. There is a presentation this evening by the select board, so I guess we'll hear that at this time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Okay.
Is this on? Thank you. Good evening, Littleton. On behalf of the Select Board, first of all, my name is Cindy Napoli. I'm a member of the Select Board. I'm going to be presenting Article 7 this evening, along with fellow Select Board member Chuck DeCoste. On behalf of the Select Board, I want to thank you for attending the meeting this evening and your consideration of Article 7. Article 7 pertains to the purchase of the Indian Hill Arts Music Center, located on King Street in Littleton. This project began as part of the space needs goal of the Select Board undertaken in 2015 to address the space needs at Town Hall for the offices located at the Shattuck Street building. When a void was left at Town Hall when the library department relocated to the slope site behind the Shattuck Street building, the Select Board began a more holistic approach to address the space needs of all town departments at Town Hall. In the fall, the Select Board learned that the Indian Hill Arts Center was going up for sale. We approached that organization and began having discussions with them about purchasing the property. As you can see from this slide, the advertised price for the property was $4.2 million. The town of Littleton offered $3.5 million. Our offer of $3.5 million was accepted for a savings of $700,000. This purchase we anticipate will be completed in March or April of this year, sorry. And it is going to be funded through borrowing of $3.5 million on a short-term basis, which will be explained in more detail in the next slide. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's kind of tough to look at the slide and try to figure out what it is, but this is a glimpse at our debt service. And as you can see, in 2025, where the arrow is located, is the peak of our debt service. And then from 2025 henceforth out to 2029, our debt service will be progressively reduced. And in 2029, we'll go below where our debt service is currently. So this is something that we, with short-term borrowing, will be able to purchase under the levy. So there will be no increase to taxes. Sorry for the air quotes.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned previously, a goal of the Select Board was to address the space needs of all town departments located at Town Hall. We undertook the assistance of consultants to assist with that process. One of the consultants we retained was Allen Lieb Architects, and that work was done in 2017. We then subsequently engaged the services of I said Allen Lieb the first time, right? LLB Architects in 221. 2021, and they provided a comprehensive report for the Select Board to help address the space needs at Town Hall. Next slide, please. So as you can see, the purpose of that undertaking was to make recommendations for the municipal departments housed in Town Hall. We asked for them to provide us with priorities, cost considerations, and options. I included in this slide an overview of the different wings at the current Shattuck Street building, which I hope you find interesting. As you will see, the library wing, which was the former library space and is currently the home of the Park and Recreation Department, was built in 1952. The multi-use wing to the right of that slide was built in 1938. That is the current location of the LCTV studios. To the right of that, you will see the classroom wing, which is currently, was built in 1938 as well, and currently houses all of the town administrative offices. And to the far right, you'll see the office wing, which was actually built in 1922, and that currently houses our COA, EHS department, as well as our school department. So this is an overview of the report provided to us by Allen Lieb Associates. They provided us with 3 options of what we could do with the departments at Town Hall, taking into consideration that the library project was already underway to move that department onto the slope site behind Shattuck Street. After taking a deep look into the options presented and taking into consideration the condition of the Shattuck Street building, we determined that it wasn't cost feasible to go forward with any of the options presented at that time. Take this one, Chuck.
Yeah, so this is a great infographic that was provided to us from LLB, which shows with different gradients the actual needs, wants, and future uses of each department. So if you see the 2 blue arrows with Park and Rec and Elder and Human Services with the highest needs for the future, the first gradient, the darkest gradient, is their current space. So for instance, for Park and Rec, when this was done, when they were in the 1922 building below EHS, they were operating out of 2,633 square feet. And it was identified that they needed, at that point in time, a little over 13,000 square feet, with future use of about 24,000 square feet. So that's just kind of a glimpse into just Park and Rec. For school department, and those are the 2 departments that we kind of see as finding a good home in the Indian Hill property. For the school department, they're currently operating at about 3,000 square feet on top of each other. Their need is about, well, when this was done, it was about 3,700 square feet, but there's been some expansion there. So they're kind of into that 4,500 square feet need now. So if they were to occupy the 3rd floor of the Indian Hill Music School space, it'd be a good fit. Not to mention the fact that it's contiguous with the high school, and it's kind of it's just a practical space for the school department to be operating out of.
Thank you. So through the space needs process, the Select Board did look at existing properties in the town of Littleton. As you can see at the top, we have the Shattuck Street building that I already discussed. And if anyone is interested in the comprehensive report about the condition of Shattuck Street, please just go to the town website and search on the space bar, Space Needs Reports. And report regarding the Shattuck Street building will appear. The other property that we did look at the bottom of this slide is the former DCU building that was located on Great Road. We looked at this property specifically with the hope that it would be a good fit for the senior center at the time, but honestly, based on the condition of the property, the structural deficiencies identified and the cosmetic deficiencies identified, we came to the conclusion it would be too cost prohibitive to proceed with that space, and it was too large, to be honest with you, for the Department of Elder and Human Services. So we passed on that property, and we circled back to the Indian Hill Music Center property. So this is just to recap projects that we've already undertaken to address the space needs at Shattuck Street. The first project, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, was the relocation of the library to the slope site on Shattuck Street. As you can see on the right is a graph, image of the prior library space. On the left is the new Reuben Hoare Library building. which is 23,000 square feet. The cost of that project to the town of Littleton was $7.288 million. Thankfully, we received a substantial grant from the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, which helped offset the cost of that project. Next slide. So the project that we have underway currently to address the needs of our Elder and Human Services Council on Aging is known as the Center on Shattuck Street. It is the building that we're planning, located on the right-hand side of the slide, that we're planning to build on the tennis courts at the Shattuck Street campus. The cost of that project is $500 million, and that the Center on Shattuck Street will be about 17,148 square feet. And now we're returning back to the Indian Hill Music Center. We're currently looking at this space as a new home for the Park and Recreation Department and our school department. The building itself is 21,500 square feet. The cost of the building is $3.5 million. That is exclusive of any renovation costs required for improvements on the building. We don't know what those are yet, but we are looking into that. And just to give you a contrast, the estimated price for the building is $163 per square foot. If you compare that to $635 per square foot, which is what it costs to build the new library.
Let me just jump in there.
Yep.
If I may, let me jump in there. The previous slide showed what our new senior center is going to look like, and that's going to be to the tune of about $800+ per square foot. So, switching back, sorry Ryan, making you toggle here. So with the Indian Hill being on the market for $4.2 million, us getting it for $3.5 million, it's kind of an opportunity that it's contiguous with the high school property. We had an opportunity 20 years ago, 25 years ago, to pick up Sleigh Ride Lane, and for whatever reason, we decided not to do that. We had an opportunity to potentially acquire the Weber property. We got beat out on that one. So this is an opportunity that it's right before us. It's the only, they're not making any more land. So this is, in order for us to repair or build this, to replace this building or to build this building, it would cost us somewhere in the vicinity of about $800 a square foot times 21,000 square feet. I'm not that good at math, but I'll kind of leave it to your imagination. It's going to be closer to $20 million. So $3.5 million price tag to us, it's not an easy pill to swallow, but it's really an opportunity lost if we don't jump at it.
Thank you.
If I could interrupt, that's 10 minutes. Can you finish up in a few more
Yes,
minutes?
thank you, Mr. Moderator. I
Thank you.
apologize. So just quickly, this is just a recap of this Town Hall Space Needs Building Assessment that was done by LLB Architects. On the right-hand side is a summary of all the areas that they did analyze with their professional consultants when conducting an assessment of the Indian Hill building. Next slide. So currently, the Indian Hill Arts building is 3 floors. There's a basement, a main floor, and a second floor. It is used for office space, conference rooms. There's a large auditorium, and there's plenty of storage space. There's a huge added bonus to this property in that it's already ADA compliant. It already has an elevator. It has 3 kitchenettes. It has a state-of-the-art auditorium, and it also has 1 acre of open space directly adjacent to the property that could be repurposed for future use for the Park and Rec or another town department. And this is just a quick overview of the outside vision of the property for the Park and Recreation Department. You can see it's 1.12 acres. There's an acre of open space. There's plenty of room for expansion for the tennis courts and possibly pickleball courts. And this is a quick overview of the interior of the building and how it would be used for the Park and Recreation Department. They would occupy the main floor in the basement area of the building. The school department would plan on occupying the second floor of the building. And this is just an overview layout of their use of that space. So what's left at Shattuck Street? The blue lines on this slide represent the departments whose needs have already been met. The remaining departments are outlined and highlighted on this slide. So basically, we're looking at about 19,000 square feet of space that we need to address in the future for the remaining departments at Town Hall in the event that Article 7 passes this evening. And the future use of Shattuck Street, just to make the residents aware, the Select Board has undertaken to issue an RFI to look at the possibility of converting the town hall into senior affordable housing, and by that I mean deeply discounted senior affordable housing along the same lines as the Pine Tree Park complex that already exists on Shattuck Street, and we'll be reviewing those RFIs at our meeting in March. So I just wanted to thank the residents again for attending this evening and your consideration of Article 7. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's the presentation regarding Article 7. Now that the floor will be open to debate, and I'll just remind you that since the town is borrowing funds with this article and also borrowing them to purchase land, it's a 2/3 majority vote, and we'll get to that as we discuss the voting in due course. But the floor is now open to debate. Anyone that wishes to make comments, please come to the center microphone and identify yourself by name and address, although I think I know the name and address of this gentleman, but if you'd be so kind as to give it to us so there'd be no mistake.
Mr. Moderator, George
Yes.
Sanders, 672 Great Road.
That's what I thought. Yep.
I would like to address the money in this town. Right now, our debt as of June 30, 2022 is $29,302,126. Now, from 22 to 28, if we added nothing to the debt, we would pay down that 29 million by reducing it by roughly almost 22 million. That's up to 2028. We're at 23, so that's 5 years we're talking about here. So, with this particular article here, there's no reason on God's green earth that we shouldn't buy it. Now, someone said in the social media there that what was taking place, that it was taking a piece of property off the tax roll. Well, people should never put out bad information and try to influence somebody about something. It is not taken off the tax roll. They're not even paying any tax. They are exempt. So we haven't been collecting any money for that property there. That's the first thing. The second thing is that they're not asking you to go outside the levy to buy this. We need to understand we're authorizing them to borrow. We told the town select board and the finance committee, you make sure that we're able to pay our debt when it comes due. That's what they've done. They've been prudent in taking the money, and they like to go out and borrow it. They're going to make sure that that amount of money is in the budget when it comes due on the annual payment, that it get paid. That's not a problem. This is the best deal that we have going. And I'll tell you another thing. The school committee is in those cubby holes up there in Shattuck Street. I've been here a little over 25 years. I have never heard the school department headquarters ask you anything about building an administrative building for them. But we have built schools, and they have never asked you one time to spend anything. This is an opportunity now to put them in a better position. And I ask you to please pass this, give them a better position in this building by buying it. It's not costing us any money. It's not raising our taxes. And what is it that you don't understand when it's not raising your taxes? That means whatever we have approved with the new growth and 2.5, that is what they're operating this town off, with the resident paying about 3/4 of that annual amount of money. We have a small amount that the commercial and industrial is paying. But what we need to understand is that opportunities don't always come, and when we pass it up, we can't talk about It don't get you nowhere. It don't get you anything. But this is a golden opportunity for you here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, to take and vote to give this town this building and the understanding that they are being prudent with your money. I look at the money. That's where I'm at. And I see that we're in a solid position to buy this and authorize them to go out and borrow $3.5 million, and the money is in the levy so that they can pay it. They're not asking you to go outside the levy. They just simply ask you, let's get this building, let's move forward before we lose the opportunity. I understand there are a couple others that are in the back in case we decide we ain't going to take it. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Bill Cole, 573 King Street. The thing that bothers me the most about this is this piece of property was proposed for the library a few years back, and I don't know what the selling price was at that time, but it was disregarded. One of the big selling points of the library building a new building was that that entire area would be available to other town boards that need more space. Well, now Park and Rec has taken over the second and third floor of the library, and they've done a terrific job, furnishing it to their needs. The building department, which used to be, an office about 20 by 30, is now the entire first floor of the library. And since Park and Rec has left the town hall, that whole end of the building can be the school department. I don't think that a good use of the space that's available was done correctly. The other thing that bothers me is the being sold a bill of goods and then finding out that, it didn't happen. And being sold a bill of goods is opening up the library space, and I don't think that space was used as it should have been. Also, we're building a new Shattuck Street Center, so that's coming along. And it was noted the age of the town hall, the different sections of it. And I think that was done to let everybody here know exactly how old the building is, making it sound like, it's a relic. And if that be the case, then why is an individual going to take over the town hall and turn it into low to moderate income housing? How can that be? Why would they do that if the building is that derelict? And that's all I have to say. I think we're spending, I don't disagree with the price of the building, but I don't think we need it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Rock.
Okay, yes, Select Board.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just want to reply to the previous speaker. With respect to converting, the possibility of converting the Shattuck Street building into possibly senior affordable housing, what we did through the RFI process is we issued it to request information from nonprofit builders. The state has many organizations in its tool belt that specialize in converting existing municipal buildings into affordable housing. They have very deep pockets, and they have the funding and the resources at the local level as well as the state level to do so. For the town of Littleton to convert Shattuck Street into anything, we would have to bring the entire building up to ADA compliance. and we'd have to pay prevailing wage. And that is a considerable cost to the town that we are not prepared to undertake for that building. Yes, the building is aging. Yes, the building is being used right now to the best of its ability, but there is potential to partner with others and create something new with that space, and then address the space needs of the remaining departments in that building. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir?
Anthony Rizzolo, 290 Foster Street. The question I have is, we're being asked to vote on this, and we have like an incomplete cost. You know, we know the cost of the building, and we've estimated square footage based on that, but what's an estimate of the cost of the renovation? I mean, that could be $2 million, it could be $20 million, which is going to get that cost up. So I kind of would like to know at least about what that would cost.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there an answer for you?
Thank you. So we have another article later, which Mass General Law, Chapter 149, we have to go through a process. We have to do a feasibility study first, and then we go into design and engineering for that. So when looking in, as Select Board Napoli mentioned, we've had LLB architects look at this building before, so they took a really good look at the bones, and it's really good shape. So what we believe that is basically cosmetics at this point. We don't have a number because Mass General Law doesn't allow us to do a number. We threw an estimate of $2 million. It might be less. But we don't see structurally. We had our building department go through it, our electrical inspectors and our plumbing inspectors. And you know, we truly believe that we're going to keep it as minimal as possible. Cosmetics, make the place look fresh and bright.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes.
My name is Julie Sider. I live on Harwood Avenue, 167 Harwood. First, I have a question. It was said that our taxes would not be raised as a result of this, which if we're borrowing $3.5 million, then yes, obviously we will be paying for it through our taxes. So it's not a free building. But I agree with the previous speaker that raised the question, how are we going to pay for whatever the unknown cost is of building not only this building, but the extras on the outside, the pickleball courts, the tennis courts, the making it adjacent directly to the high school, and also Shattuck Street. That building is very, very old, and I understand the town wanting to find new places for people. It was my understanding that that was going to be where the library had been located. That was why we voted for a new library, because we were promised that that space would accommodate space needs for town offices. And now we're being asked to spend additional monies, and then we're asked to consider $16 million, which I know is not at this current, or $18 million, whatever, for a senior center. Where does it stop? So if somebody can give me a better idea of how much money we're talking about in sum total by setting these dominoes in a row here, by purchasing this property and renovating it and adding the extras and moving things out of Shattuck Street and adding things on, we're talking quite a lot of money in the future. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I wasn't pleasantly surprised when I got my tax bill recently. Thank you.
Thank you. Select Board.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you to the previous speaker and to the body. So my air quote comment during the presentation is I struggle with this all the time because we are able to purchase this under the levy. If we purchase it under the levy, then we don't have as much available under the levy to use on something else perhaps. So that's why we showed the slide with the decreasing debt service so that you folks could make an informed decision and understand that we are paying down that. We're very aggressive. We've got very good financial policies, a great finance committee that helps us to be honest and make sure that we're not going beyond our means. We're not looking for an override. We're not doing any debt exclusion overrides or asking to go outside of the levy or over the levy limit, because that will be a permanent extension to our levy that'll just matriculate year after year. So Mr. Sanders probably did a better job than I did with my air quotes, and I was probably too cute by saying that, but anytime we purchase anything under the levy limit, we can spend to that limit at our current buying power, if you will. I did it again. I gotta sit on these things. So I hope that helps to explain that. As far as when does it end? I mean, we have to operate, it's like operating a business. We have to invest in our buildings, we need to invest in our employees. So yes, the other thing that I did note here as well. In order for us to do any repairs on Shattuck Street, as soon as there's a 5-year look back, according to this, based upon what the state and the federal government is for any improvements we do to the building. So we've already put roofs on, we've put HVAC systems on, so all of that money gets added up, and once we are at 30% of the assessed value of that building, we have to bring everything up to code. So both of the elevators in the Shattuck Street building have to be brought up to code if we do reach that threshold. Yeah, sprinklers, I mean, there's a number of things that were identified when we went through the space needs study. We've been doing this since, and it's been a goal of the select board since 2014. We've done a couple of different studies where this body has authorized us to spend money in order to do space needs studies and try to look at our highest and best use of your tax dollars.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Robin Sewell, 60 Foster Street. I agree with the second, third, and fourth speakers and their concerns about the amount of money that we're possibly spending and the unknown amounts that we don't yet know for sure. I wish we could just get the senior center built, utilize the space that I thought we were going to use, and then go on.
Okay. Yes, sir.
John Kazanjian, 17 Roxbury Drive. I also work at Parks and Rec. I'm a program coordinator. I think most people know me here. But, you know, we have been very successful over the last 5 years I've been here on borrowed space. We borrow space from everybody in town. We finally are moved into a space with a very limited window of opportunity to use it, which is closing quickly. So if you love what Parks and Recreation does, and you want to see us do more of that, give us the space to give you an endless possibility of things for you to do in your recreation time. Thank you.
Okay, yes, sir.
Saul Marini, 149 Hartwell Avenue. I'm a member of the Park and Recreation Commission. I just wanted to note that we did meet and discuss the article and voted unanimously in support of it.
Very good. Thank you. Yes.
Jared Elpieri, New Estate Road. When property like this becomes available and it's to the benefit of the town, you can't just say, I'm going to wait a year or two or whenever we feel like it. You got to act while it's available. And another question is, would this be an appropriate place for the senior center? It seems like the auditorium make a great hall, and if it's minimal conversion, it might save you the better part of that $18 million you're planning on spending on Shattuck Street.
Mr. Moderator, I can respond to that. To the previous speaker, we did specifically initially look at the Indian Hall Music Center for a senior center. We brought in our architect team to assess the property. What we determined was because of the layout of that building, the multiple floors, and the overall space, it's too large for a senior center, and it just wasn't really a good fit for that department. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi there, I'm Kate Jacobson. I am a member of the Park and Rec Commission. However, I'm speaking on my behalf as a citizen of this town, 14 Wamsut Trail. And I echo the sentiments that it's unfortunate that this is coming before us right now as we're spending money and money and money. However, this opportunity is before us at this moment in time. We cannot create space. We need the space. We're about to lose our tennis courts to the Council on Aging building. We need a spot for our town to have these tennis courts. We also are interested in pickleball courts. We need the space. I know it's unfortunate, but we need it. And our town is growing. We need our children and our adults to have access to what we deserve is wonderful Parks and Rec opportunities, programming, space, as well as for our school board. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
Hi, I'm Karen Morrison, 11 Spruce Street. I think, as many who have followed the issue can attest, there's no shortage of ideas for how to use this property. I've heard everything from the presentation here to more fields for our kids' sports teams. And so I'd just like to remind folks that we're not voting on use right now. We're voting on whether to have the land available for the use that we decide on. I think that our land is not going to get any cheaper in this town. I think that this represents a unique opportunity in that it's adjacent to municipal land that we already own. There isn't any parcel like that available in town that I'm aware of. And so I would encourage a yes vote on this. I think that it is a forward-thinking approach that will address problems that we'll be encountering in the future in a cost-conscious way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just a second. Finance Committee?
Hi, Brian Tarbox, Finance Committee. Just a couple of points I want to make. To the folks who say that we should wait a little bit, I understand the timing isn't ideal, but there's another bidder who has already bid an extra $700,000 over our bid. If we don't buy this, if we don't approve this tonight, it's gone tomorrow. That's not ideal, but that's just how it is. To the person who said, when does it end? I'm going to give you an answer you won't like. It doesn't end. If you own a house, when are you done with the house? You're never done with the house. You know, that's just how it is. Our high school is 20 years through, you know, it's 50% through its expected lifetime. We are always going to be buying new buildings. The trick is that we have to do it in a reasonable fashion. A lot of the questions that people have raised, I initially raised as well. I was initially tremendously opposed to this. And then I did my due diligence. I talked to people on all parts of the table, and I got data, and I have come to be a strong supporter of this. And I ask you this. You know me. You know that if I think the select board isn't doing things quite right, I'm going to say so. You know that. I'm not saying that. Chuck and I agree. I would ask you when the last time that has happened, but it's never happened. So this is a $15, $20 million building that we can buy for 3.2, and it's going to be gone at the end of the night. So I have been where you're at, and I've changed my mind based on the data.
Thank you. Selectman DeCoste.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And I had planned on speaking before Brian spoke, so this is not just so that we follow suit here. Brian did mention the fact that there are other bidders, there's other folks that are interested in the property. That property lends very well to an educational use or a church, which are frankly covered under the Dover Amendment, and we would not get any tax revenue. So if anybody's got some reservations about, well, we'll be keeping it off the tax rolls, it's not been on the tax rolls since it's been in a music school, and in all likelihood, it's not going to go onto the tax rolls. So just wanted to say that. And again, Brian and I agree.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Charles Howe, 564 Newtown Road. I have a question. Is this going to be on the new sewer system we're putting in town?
Mr. Moderator, through you to the previous speaker and to the body. This is, because it's contiguous to the high school property, the high school is currently on our sewer system that we have for our municipal buildings, and it would be tied in.
So it'll be tied into the new sewer system. So you're saying that the tax rates aren't going to go up. My understanding is this is going to the sewer system. That's going to be an increase to the ratepayers because all the ratepayers in town pay for any municipal building. So there will be a small increase to the taxpayers.
Correct, right. So it would, all users of the sewer system are the ones that are going to bear the cost. But if we purchase Indian Hill and it doesn't get tied in, then we're going to have the expense of commercial septic maintenance as well.
Right. So either way, there will be a increase to the tax rates for septic, either a new septic system for the building or the sewer system. I just want to make sure everybody knows that, because the way you had said the taxes aren't going to go up, but with this going on, there will be probably a minimum increase of taxes, but there will be an increase.
So as Select Board Napoli said, we're downsizing the buildings. So if we eventually were to put town hall someplace else, picking up Indian Hill we wouldn't eventually someday not have Shattuck Street. So it's not a one-for-one. So we probably would be decreasing the amount of usage that we would have for sewer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yes, sir.
Damian Filato, 6 Oak Ridge Road. Just to get a more complete idea as to what the overall package here is, we've talked about the $3.5 million price. We've talked about an unknown amount to upgrade the building. Do we know what the debt service cost is going to be?
We'll attempt
So,
to get that
I'm
for
ready.
you from the finance director, or do you have that, Anthony?
I don't have a dollar amount, but what we're going to do is short-term borrow. When you short-term borrow, we're just going to pay that little interest. We wouldn't bond this till the senior center is done, which is, could be 2 years from now. So I don't have a dollar amount. Our treasurer's not here, but it's minimal for the first 2 years.
Probably won't be minimal with what interest rates are doing right now.
Fortunately, we're a AAA community, and we get really great rates, but good point.
Thank you.
Okay, finance director.
Thank you for the question. So for the $3.5 million purchase price, it would be about $446,500 for fiscal year '25, $210 for '24, $377, $175 for '26, $366, $600 for '27, $356,025 for '28, $345,450 for '29, $334,875 for '30, and $324,300 for '31. Total debt service, hold on, I'd have to add all of that, because he didn't give that, that's just a breakdown between his principal and interest. Hold on a moment, please.
Okay, sir, you can approach the microphone while the finance director is adding the total.
Mr. Moderator, may I?
Yes, you may start.
Thank you. Mitt Wanzer, 39 Mill Road. I'd like to just talk a little bit about the presentation and highlight some of the things that I see in the program. I came today with an open mind for this project and wondered how I might go. I'm definitely in favor of purchasing the property. I think some of the things, having been a volunteer in committees around town, I spent some time in various spaces in Shattuck Street building, and I think starting on this diagram, the second floor opportunity for the Littleton Public School Central Office is a great opportunity. For those people with concerns about renovations to the building, I can tell you that I've been through this building thoroughly as a member of the Groton Hill Music School. I'm a student there, and I've attended recitals for my children, and I've also taken private lessons, and I've performed as a performer on the stage. Starting with the diagram on the second floor, The layout for this is shown. The only thing that's been added to this is color and labels. So the renovations that are due for this space, including the superintendent's office, is minimal in terms of changing partitions and walls. Those are all studios existing. The doors are all in the same place. The hallways are typical as built currently. It's a well-maintained space. There's bathrooms on that floor. And then moving to the main floor, the diagram on the right here, you'll see same thing. All the blue areas are current offices and/or studio spaces, and I've used many of those spaces, including the large room in the top left. The only major change to that space is the general foyer. The area that's yellow in the middle has an additional room added with partitions, I assume to pick up some more office space. That's a great meeting place for community to gather. It's sort of a lobby for the theater. The theater has a hardwood floor and a hardwood stage. It's well lit, it has high ceilings, it has curtains on the windows, and is a great space for audio performance as well. I can imagine black box productions going on with high school students if they desire a small stage. It could also be a recital hall. I have played on that stage, I've attended dances, I played bass on that stage for a contra dance on the hardwood floor. It's a fantastic evening, and I think it's a great opportunity for our community. That doesn't even start to address the lower level, which is in need of renovation, but I really think it would be great to support our teens, so I support this 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Carrie Lavoie, 3 Stony Stream Lane. I do actually work in real estate, and this cost of this building is very low for the amount of space that we'll be gaining. What I'm most excited about is the extra acre that we can preserve for the future plans at this price. That's pretty much an unheard of opportunity for us as a town, as a community. I'm very excited about Park and Rec getting their own space and not being tied to borrowing auditoriums, gyms, cafeterias. Hopefully that we can have more summer programs. As a working parent, a lot of people have a hard time with Tiger's Den being closed the last several weeks of the summer because the schools are getting up and running. So I'm very excited about Park and Rec potentially getting their own space. My concern is, what are we going to do as a town with the Shattuck building? As somebody that works in a real estate, and I'm not here in that capacity by any stretch, all the reasons why you don't want to renovate it is why somebody like me would want to renovate it. The sprinkler systems, the fire alarm panels, the lack of elevators, the lack of ADA access. I'm sorry, I hate public speaking, but I did feel that this was important to get out. I'm very concerned about having a blight of our town of the Shattuck Street building. I do think that the select board really needs to think of how are we going to use that space. But I do think that that risk is negligible to this amazing opportunity that we do have as a town to buy this building, to preserve that extra acre for the future. We can put fields in it now, and in 10 years, maybe we need it for a school. It's already in a municipal area for us. And we're, in 10 years, 5 years, as a town, do we really want to have to purchase an acre of land? Including, all of the increases of prices, all the reasons why we don't want to buy this building. And I actually talked to Mr. Nordhaus about, I was like 100% against this. But then I looked into it. This is not an opportunity we're going to get again. And I do think for our children, for our community, let's buy the building, let's deal with the details. And I do think Park and Rec needs a space. I'm not so sure about the school department, but I'm willing to listen and see who's going to use that 3rd floor. But the 2nd floor and the basement floor is great. I wish this opportunity came up with the senior center because we could have probably figured out a Park and Rec senior center, but the senior center has already been voted on. So that's down the road. Let's focus on getting this building, preserving the acre for the future use, and giving Parks and Rec the really opportunity to have the amazing programming that we all want for our children and for our community.
Okay, that's
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Gino Farrelloni, Albert Avenue. I'm not here to yell at you guys, but because I can see the chief is watching me. The reason I'm saying I'm very proud of you, what you're trying to do. The question is, look around here. Look how many people there are, maybe over 60 or 70. That's what they're worrying about. They're worrying about the taxes going to go up. But there is a solution. You want to take advantage of the property because $3.5 million. The question is, if you don't do it now, the interest is going to go up. Like when I was in the building committee, I suggested to do the middle school, the high school, and the police. And they say, no, we can't do the police. And then what happened? The interest went up so high that the police station cost a lot of money. So you have the opportunity to buy the piece of property, you do it. The question is, make sure that you engage the senator and the state representative. They say to the state, they have $2 billion in a saving. $2 billion. So now you like to have a grant for the small town like Littleton. I'm sorry, I don't mean to yell, but the question, I talk loud. And then you will have what you wanted to have. I understand that I can see that. The senior center finally took me 25 years to push all of you to get into it. Some of the selectmen, they're not even here. But 25 years, and now is in the work. I'm proud of you guys. You never know, some of these people might enjoy it instead of they stay home because they can't afford to go anyplace else. There's a place where they can get together. So trying to buy this building and also negotiate the interest, do it now because it's going to go up. And if you don't believe me, you wait in 6 months how much it's going to go. Okay? Get in touch with the senator or the state representative. If you can't get in touch with the senator, I'll call him. And then when he sees my voice, he's going to run away because he knows that I get things done. This small town needs what you're doing. We need it. And I'm very proud of you because I've been here for 42 years and I love you guys. You understand that? I love the police and the fire department. If you see me, they gave me a hug, it's because I love them and they love me. I want you to do this now.
Okay, yes, sir.
Ed Foltz, 619 Newtown Road, and I'm sort of in favor of the project, but there's been some things stated that really scared the bejesus out of me. You're talking about developing Shattuck Street for housing. You said senior housing, but no one has promised that. And with the fiasco that you guys allowed, you generically, collectively allowed King Street to become, what's to stop us from hearing 6 months, a year from now, that you're selling Shattuck Street so that it can be torn down and built into 500, 100, whatever that space allows of apartments? I have to tell you that you are taxing and crowding us out of town. I'm 64 years old, about to retire, and I cannot barely afford the taxes today. I love that this is under the levy. I do agree with the folks that are concerned about the fact that you haven't given us any real numbers about the additional costs. I understand. You're telling me the state won't allow you. But if we say $3.5 million and we add in $2.5 million for renovations, now you're at, $6 million. And then additional money to put pickleball courts, seriously? And other things. You're really closer to 10 million by the time you get finished with, no, okay, 8 million. Maybe I overestimated. By the time you get done with all of the amenities that the pictures show. But my bigger concern is what you're going to do with Shattuck Street. If you're going to put in a few senior housing, guaranteed to be seniors like the complex that we have already for seniors, I could get behind that. But if you're going to put in what we're being foisted with over at King Street, well, I'm sorry, I'd rather vote no on this than to get that fiasco. I'll say that right now. So, thank you.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
sure. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to respond to the prior speaker. Very good points raised with regard to the use of Shattuck Street, and I share your concerns about housing development, promises of senior affordable housing. I'm on the Affordable Housing Trust Board. Fully appreciate what you're saying and where you're coming from, especially our community as a whole, what we're facing as far as housing. That's a whole nother topic of discussion. I do want to just say that we issued the RFI, as I stated, the Select Board did, asking for responses specifically to creating deep discounted senior affordable housing. And what that means is in terms of AMI, it would be for people earning less than $60,000 a year. And that's really the age group that we're trying to target and increase that housing stock in our community. At the end of the day, no matter what we decide to do with Shattuck Street, it's coming back to town meeting. We're not doing a thing with that building unless the residents of Littleton approve it. So at the end of the day, if we flip, as was implied that we could, it's up to the residents of Littleton to come back to the board and recall this meeting and say, hey, that's not what you promised us. What we're doing here tonight is we're presenting an opportunity to the town. We've been looking at the Indian Hill Arts Center building for years. It just came on the market for sale. It's a great property. It's adjacent to the high school. It has ample parking. It has open space. It's ADA compliant. It has elevators. It has kitchens. It actually has a state-of-the-art, not a state-of-the-art, it does a state-of-the-art auditorium. It has a gorgeous stone fireplace in the basement. It's a beautiful piece of property, but it's up to the residents tonight to decide whether or not we're doing the right thing by taking a leap of faith and purchasing it. No, we don't know how much the renovations are going to cost, but we do know that they're basically cosmetic. Thankfully, we've undertaken a space needs assessment over the course of several years to get us prepared for this opportunity. We've done our due diligence. We've assessed every department in Town Hall to figure out what their space needs are, and we're trying to address those needs as opportunities come before us. So that's where we are tonight. Again, I want to thank everybody on behalf of the Select Board for your consideration of the article before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last one. Go ahead.
Maria Borowski, 41 Denise Drive, and I want to thank you for what you just said. I think there's a lot of fear, skepticism, doubt within the audience about what the action is and what the impact is going to be on the citizens, and also the speed of which it came. So a bit to the surprise of, I think, several people in the town. But I do believe that as elected officials that you're looking out for our best interests. They may be short-term impacts, but it's long-term gain, including our property prices, our values of our homes are going up undeniably, as well as the quality of the town. So I thank you for your efforts.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we're ready to proceed to a vote, and you'll recall that it requires a 2/3 majority vote because it involves both borrowing and also a land purchase. The town's bylaws, in cases of incurring debt, borrowing, allow the moderator to determine the method of voting. And the choices are 3 voice vote, and I don't think I could determine a 2/3 on a voice vote this evening on this question. A hand count or a ballot and checklist vote. And I think we all remember the days of, the multiple ballot and checklist votes. In any event, my preference is for a hand count. And that's the way that, yes, sir? I'm kind of wrapping things up here.
Well, you never said what it was going to cost us, the debt exclusions.
Well,
She added it up and-
you do have that, Alicia. Just 1 second, though. I think it was my error on that. I responded to a question that was shouted from over here when it really should have come from the microphone, so that's on me. I did ask Alicia if she could total that, and we will give that to you, but that question properly should have come from the microphone, so that's my mistake. Yes, Alicia.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So with the assumption the treasurer made there would be some bond premium and some capital from the capital stabilization fund to pay a little bit of this down. So the total cost to the taxpayer would be 3.8 million.
Okay, thank you. And so we'll proceed to a vote, and it will be by hand count. And so we'll need, we're really trying to get to a vote here, sir. It's been an hour.
That's a very significant number.
Did everyone hear it? Because that's,
So I want to make sure that I understand.
would you like to repeat the number, please, Alicia?
Yes. The number I gave you was 3.8 million.
On top of the 3.5.
No, not on top of the 3. That's the total.
So an additional 300,000.
Yes, because the treasurer's taken into account some capital towards it in addition to bond premium.
Okay, thank you. So we're now going to move to a vote, and Madam Clerk, if you could... You will, for tellers. So, if you have adequate tellers, Madam Clerk, we can proceed with the vote. And I'll ask that when you vote, you raise your hand. You keep it raised until you're confident someone has counted you. And also, people sitting in the front of the room, same goes the Finance Committee and Select Board. Yeah, okay. All right. A yes vote is to approve Article 7, to approve the purchase of the Indian Hill Music School and to approve the borrowing of $3.5 million. All those in favor of the motion as read, please raise your hands. Keep them raised until you've been counted.
Diane, how about somebody else?
Are we good?
I already counted them. No, I counted them.
This is yes.
I had 58.
I had 42.
I had 83, including myself.
Okay. Okay, you can all lower your hands now. We're going to do the no's. All those.
No, they can't. Adam's not done. He's supposed to do the math teacher.
Oh.
Carry the 2. Why is the math teacher taking so long?
It's that new math. Are there others, or? Yeah.
You counted them?
Please see the clerk. Okay. All right. All those opposed, please. We're doing the no's now. All those opposed, please raise your hands. Keep them raised aloft until you've been counted. May not take as long. Okay, while the clerk is tallying the votes, we'll move on to Article 8. And you'll want to refer to the blue amendment sheet because the motion is slightly revised to reflect two scrivener's errors, or typos, if you will, that were in the original motion. And so it is moved and seconded to approve Article 8 as printed in the amendment update sheet, the blue sheet that was handed out to you this evening. Does the select board wish to hear from the finance director on this one? Please. Alicia? Okay. What? What? Yeah, okay. Hang on. Yeah. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Anthony.
Thank you. So as part of the budget process, we always go back and look at old capital items that town meeting approved. So with that, we've identified in the past few years that we were able to close out some articles, and it came to $336,000 and change. What we plan to do with that money is a few things. Number one, get right into the feasibility study and bring a number hopefully back to town meeting in May if Indian Hill does pass and the renovations that we need. Second part is we talked about tennis courts and replacing the tennis courts that are going to be displaced when the senior center breaks ground in August. And the third is we have still an old building at Shattuck Street that always needs work there, and we're always pouring money into that. So that money would allow us to work on the property that we currently have, as well as those two projects.
Okay, before we open it up to debate, I do have the totals for Article 7 from the town clerk. There were 489 ballots cast. There were 433 in favor, 56 opposed. The necessary two-thirds margin was 326 votes. So it passes by the necessary two-thirds. I declare the vote. Very good, thank you. And we'll now return to Article 8 in progress, as they say. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to Article? Yes, please come to the microphone and give us your comments.
Barbara Staples at 4 Brook Lane. Just a point of clarification with the language in Article 8. Does this give the Select Board discretionary decision-making on how the money is to be used?
Yeah. Anthony, do you want to say that?
So the answer is yes, and as I mentioned earlier, it's really for those three purposes and to address space needs issues.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who wishes to offer comments on Article 8? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion for Article 8 as... Yes, oh, am I missing someone?
Excuse me, sir.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
Okay.
How could I miss you?
If the selectmen gave me the authorization to bring it to the senator, okay, and I'll bring it also to the governor, because $2 billion they can give us a grant.
I think that's out of scope, Gino. That has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
The question. Thank you.
I tried.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion under Article 8 as printed in the blue amendment sheet, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, passes by the necessary majority. In fact, I declare it to be a unanimous vote. Madam Clerk, please so indicate. Thank you very much. We'll now move to the two main events, if you will, two zoning amendment articles for you this evening. Article 9 is potential amendments to the King Street Common zoning district. One of the requirements of the Zoning Act, Mass General Laws 48, Section 5, requires that the planning board hold a public hearing on any zoning amendments that are brought to them or that they're sponsoring themselves. So Before we hear the motion, I'll turn to Anna Houston, the Planning Board. Can you report to us on the Planning Board's public hearing on this zoning amendment?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Moderator.
Go ahead.
Hello, Littleton. I'm Anna Houston, a member of the Littleton Planning Board. The Planning Board held a duly noticed public hearing on Article 9, King Street Common Zoning Expansion on January 5th, 2023. Following the public hearing, the board voted unanimously to recommend Article 9 to town meeting in accordance with the wording in the town meeting handout, revised motion document for Article 9, which is the blue item, and the map in the town meeting report. And that's on page 14 of the original town meeting report.
Okay, thank you. And now I'll again be referring to the blue amendment handout. You'll see there have been a few changes, slight changes to the proposed zoning amendment, numbering under certain sections, and so forth. So the correct version is here in your blue update sheet. So it's moved and seconded by the Planning Board that the town approve Article 9 as written in the blue amendment sheet for the February 15th, 2023 town meeting. Okay, and I know the Planning Board has a presentation. If you could start with that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Certainly. So before I share information about Article 9, which is titled the King Street Common Zoning District Expansion, it's important to revisit that original bylaw because that is what we're amending. So here I have the original King Street Common zoning bylaw. So a couple of years ago when IBM left, we as a town voted affirmatively at fall 2021 town meeting to create what is known as a King Street Common zoning district, allowing for a mixed-use development in the future. And as you can see here on this map, Amendment 1A on your blue sheet adds the parcels that you see in green to be a part of the yellow zoning district as shown on the map. So we're moving the green parcels into the yellow district of King Street Common, which already exists. Okay, next slide. So to be clear as to which parcels we're talking about, here is the list. The 6 parcels include the mill at 410 Great Road, the Conant Building with the Littleton Sub Shop and Valley Wild Books, the shopping area with the Vinyl Vault, Electronics Plus, and the new Oriental Supermarket, the lovely yellow house at 470 King Street, the vacant parcel south of the Shell Station, and then the former Yangtze River Restaurant at 584 King Street, which is on the other side of the former IBM site. So if we could skip to slide 5, please. So this slide shows the rest of the amendments on that blue sheet. So Amendment 1B, so this simply replaces in the existing bylaw the number 5 for the number 4, so that a parcel like 410 Great Road is required to have a master plan development special permit, just like across the street at 550 King Street. The King Street Common bylaw language stipulated a special permit was required at 5 acres. So by lowering it to 4 acres, it requires a master plan development special permit at 410 as well. Amendment 1C, in the King Street Common bylaw, under dimensional requirements, we are deleting the current language and adding in language that identifies 3 different ways to determine density, as it will depend on the parcel within the district. So for 410 Great Road, density is based on parking requirements. Okay, so now if we go back to slide 4. So one of the language wording items that was really important is we wanted to be as clear as possible when including these brand new parcels into the existing zoning bylaw. So, for example, when we talked about Great Road, and originally we wanted to make sure that it identified the property as southwesterly. So it's those little kinds of things that we're really trying to clean up here. So Amendment 1D on your blue sheet has 4 Roman numerals. So this language added to the King Street Common bylaw is to correct heights along Great Road. So within 40 feet of the Great Road right-of-way, the maximum height of the building can be 4 stories or 50 feet. And for context, the current mill building stands at 4 stories right on Great Road. The next item there is that beyond 40 feet from the Great Road right-of-way, the maximum height can be 6 stories or 75 feet. And again, for perspective, the current mill building stands at 5 stories with a cupola on top. Then the final 2 amendments under 1D, Roman numerals 3 and 4 on our revised motion, include the tan shaded items that you see down there on King Street. So within 130 feet of the King Street right-of-way, height is based on the original form-based code, Article 30, which does not exceed 2.5 stories and means a streetscape on King Street cannot go any higher. That was something that other planning board members and I really wanted to make sure of. Buildings beyond 130 feet from the King Street right-of-way can be 6 stories or 75 feet, whichever is less, so this means 410 Great Road. You can see the red dashed line that delineates the setbacks. And then the final amendment in our blue packet is to amend the zoning map that is at the very end of the original King Street Common zoning district. So this is the original King Street Common zoning. There's a little map on here, and all number 2 would do is add in those 6 parcels. Next slide 6, please. So this expansion of the zoning district is to add these parcels and provide greater consistency in the King Street Common zoning district. The reasons to support this article is that 410 Great Road is a phase of the 550 King Street Common development, so it makes sense to include 410 Great Road in the King Street Common zoning district. And by including the 410 Great Road in the King Street Common zoning district, Littleton is following the land use recommendations number 1 and 4 from the master plan. I hope you all remember that, and if you're new to town, please look it up on the town website. Littleton Master Plan. It's a very important document. It helps us, with our decision making and with our policy making in Littleton. So in the master plan, recommendation number 1 says manage growth by allowing greater density in places where it makes sense to intensify land use. In recognizing activity areas near the train station, around the common, and in older industrial or commercial areas where redevelopment opportunities exist. Again, it puts development where we want it, not where we don't want it. Recommendation number 4 is change zoning for the Littleton Common and the Beaverbrook area to encourage redevelopment according to the master plan. And then the final bullet is it also makes sense to clearly define the zoning for the parcels around 410 Great Road and at the former Yangtze River restaurant. The former Yangtze River site would have the same 255-foot setback as the rest of the buildings along King Street at the old IBM site. Next slide, please. So in support of expanding the King Street Common District, before the Lupoli companies applied for the special permit at 410 Great Road, the Historical Commission visited the site and held a public meeting in October to discuss 410 Great Road. Lupoli Company's representative Rick Freiberg attended that meeting. And based on the Historical Commission's findings, the Commission supports including 410 Great Road in the King Street Common zoning district expansion. And additionally, on February 13th, the Select Board voted 5-0 to support Article 9. So thank you for listening about these amendments for zoning consistency, and thank you for your consideration, and thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you. The floor is now open to debate on Article 9, so please come to the center microphone if you have comments you'd like to make. And again, it's a zoning Question, it will require ultimately a 2/3 affirmative vote. But let's get started with the debate. Yes, sir.
Ed Foltz, 619 Newtown Road, and I am as dead set against this change as I can ever be. This is asking us to allow this developer and our planning board, who loves this development, to put more construction, more traffic, more apartments, more of everything in an area that already can't handle what it's got. I don't remember the part you read about encouraging us to expand development in the common, but I have to believe that when we did the master plan, we never said we were going to have 800 apartments in that space. You want Yangtze to be in there so we can put another 200, and you want the mill to be in there so we can put another 200 over there. So what are we going to do? We might as well move into Boston because that's what we will be. There is no need for this change, and to have a 6-story building in that space is a disaster. It's a disgrace.
No need to raise your voice. You can
I'm
make-
sorry.
make
I
your
get.
point.
You are right. You are right. I'm sorry. I get animated. My family has been in this town for 58 years, and as I said earlier, we are being taxed and crowded out of town. This does not make the common better by any means. It makes the developer richer. It will absolutely does that. It gives us more construction. It gives us more traffic. They claim we're going to have multi-use. We're going to have stores and people living there and working and selling and buying and everything else. But I have to tell you, I'm not going to get anything out of that except my taxes going up because there'll be more children there for the schools. And what are we going to be told? Well, we need bigger schools now. And in fact, that's part of the reason that we bought the Indian Hill, was because they said it's near the school, so we can use it if we have to build more. I just have serious, major renovations about allowing this developer, with the permission of the planning board, to expand his project. I would also, and I don't know the process of doing this, Tim, I would like to propose an amendment to the amendment of the amendment, where it says 6 stories. I would like to change that to be a maximum of 4 stories, so that nowhere in that development do we go higher than 4 stories. And that would obviously grandfather anything that's there, so the mill would not be impacted. But the new construction would not be allowed to go over 4 stories. So could you help me how I do that?
Well, it's in a couple of different sections. You'd have to call it out in both of the sections you wanted to make that change.
Thank you. I'm not a parliamentarian, so I
No, that's fine.
apologize.
It's under
I would like to change
paragraph
letter D, item Roman numeral 2 and Roman numeral 4, to change the maximum height from 6 stories to 4 stories.
Okay, 4 stories or 50 feet, as it's referred to in the other
Yes,
amendments?
yes.
Okay. So it's paragraph E, Roman numerals 2 and 4 in that section. You would have a maximum height of 4 stories or 50 feet in place of 6 stories or 75 feet.
Yes.
Okay, that's the amendment. Is there a second to that? Okay, there's a second. Okay. That amendment is now what's on the floor for discussion.
Mr. Moderator?
So,
Mr. Moderator, do I have an opportunity to respond to that?
I'm just clarifying his amendment. Yes, you may respond to that. Go ahead.
Is the microphone on? Okay, good. So the Lupoli development that is at 410 Great Road was brought before the planning board late last year, and the planning board went through a public hearing process and approved that particular application. And so there is a decision. Everyone can go out there and look at it. It's on the town website. And so regardless of whether the vote is no, that development can still move forward. And the reason for that is because that particular decision was made off of the current Village Common zoning, and it is allowable. So even if the vote is no, that development can still move forward.
Okay. If I could I hear from town council for just a minute? Tom, would such an amendment as proposed just now, if it were approved, how would that affect decisions that have been made or that are pending?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom Harrington, Town Council. So what I can tell you is that Chapter 48, Section 6 tells us that if a bylaw is amended, it would apply to a special permit if that special permit were not issued prior to the first notice of the planning board hearing. I don't know the date that we held our first hearing, but I believe, my understanding is that the decision was issued after that date. So I think what you're looking at here is if this bylaw passes, the current special permit would not apply. If this bylaw fails, that special permit is valid.
Is valid. Okay. Thank you. Is that clear? Do people like another shot at that? Could we, Tom, could we have another shot at that, maybe? Thank you.
Okay, maybe a little more English?
All right, I'll try to use different words to say the same thing. There is currently a special permit that has been issued for the mill building, correct?
That is correct.
That special permit was issued under the village district, the village overlay district. That special permit is valid unless town meeting votes to amend the bylaw so that that property moves out of the village district and into the King Street district. So if you approve this article, that special permit would no longer be valid, assuming I'm correct in that it was issued before the first date of notification of the change of the bylaw. Is that clear? So that you vote yes on this, he would have to seek a new special permit. The owner of the land would need to seek a new special permit. You vote no on this, the special permit that he was currently issued stands and is valid. And he can build what he was approved for. Yeah. Okay. Correct. He could, so I'm not familiar with the special permit, but I understand it would allow the construction of a 6-story building. So that would stand. If you vote this bylaw down, the 6-story stands.
And if this bylaw is approved with the suggested amendments, it would
apply to a new application.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. I think that's the question.
A whole bunch more adjustments.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. The amendment's on the floor now. If people want to speak to it, this is their time.
I think we need to then change it also to include not more than 100 total housing units in this additional space. I would point out to folks that currently in Littleton, we are 3,300+ households. That includes every apartment, every house. There are 3,300 of us. What's being built at the IBM now is 780 units. That is 20% of our population numbers of housing units. What they want to add with the other additional parcels is another 280. That brings us up to 1,100 units. Now, that's a third of our housing units. That's an awful lot for us to absorb, and it's too much for our infrastructure. And when you consider the fact that they've rezoned the common under this horrible master plan, they've rezoned the common to allow 6-story buildings on all of the area up to Donlands, with walk-up apartments with only 1.25 parking spaces per apartment, I'm just horrified. I feel like we're losing the soul of our town, and I don't know what to do. I grew up in Littleton. My family moved here in 1961. I was 2. That makes me 63. I moved back here 20 years ago to raise my children. Moved here, my oldest was 6, my son was 3, and I was 6 months pregnant. And I moved here because I grew up in Littleton. It was such a good town for me to grow up in, and I wanted that for my children. But we are losing our town. And I know the housing is in dire need. And I know the world needs more housing, especially New England needs more housing, and Boston's in desperate need. And I didn't fight.
We're only discussing the amendment that was offered by Mr. Fultz at this point. We can't.
Well, then we need to change it to maybe limit it to 100 houses. How would I do that? So if they add these in.
We're going to deal with the one amendment at a time. And Ed?
Something. We have to do
Would you mind putting your head together with town council? He'd like to see your amendment in writing, so if you could go up front and talk to Tom. Yeah, just to make sure we got it correct, right down the end of the bench. Thank you. All right, I'll just remind you that the discussion is only on the amendment that was offered by Ed Fultz to change maximum height to 4 stories or 50 feet in all 4 of the cases here.
Can I offer an additional motion that the additional parcels?
There'll be a time for that, but not at the moment. We're dealing with this amendment right now. Okay. Yes, sir.
Charles Howe, 564 Newtown Road. I have a question. I think it's more directed, Mr. Moderator, to the fire department. 50-foot buildings, from my understanding, we only have 1 ladder truck in town. I wonder what this is going to do to the fire department. Are we going to need to buy more engines to be able to handle a case of fires in the center of town?
Okay. Thank you. Do we have someone from the fire department that could speak to... Well, in either case, the 75 feet or the 50 feet, how does that affect firefighting?
Sure, Mr. Moderator. Tom Clancy, Interim Fire Chief. Glad I could be here this evening. Didn't think I was coming up here to talk about that. So, I know this will make Chuck's night. Let's buy a couple more ladder trucks. Right? In all honesty, it's hard to speculate on a project that I don't have design plans in front of, but rest assured, the height of our ladder truck isn't the issue, it's access to the building. So whenever one of these projects comes forward, we see the initial picture of the project, and then it goes through a review process, and they have to meet code requirements, which gives us access for our fire engines, our ladder trucks, everything to make sure. And the buildings, when they're that height, are sprinklered, so that's another layer of fire protection in it. But I can't honestly speak to the height. 50 feet next to the building is easily attained with a 100-foot ladder truck, but if you're 40 feet away, it presents a different issue. So I would say that the building code will make sure that any building that's placed, no matter the height of it, will be protected with sprinklers, fire alarms, and life safety in mind. Does that answer your question, sir? Good, because it's the only one I have.
Yes.
Do what I'm trying to do, but if I don't do anything, then it won't at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Karen Morrison, Spruce Street. I had a question for town council. If you could please clarify, if this floor amendment passes and it's an inherent conflict with the language in the rest of the proposed article, how does that get resolved, please?
Okay. Town council?
Again, Tom Harrington, Town Council. Mr. Moderator, to you through the previous speaker. I was just having a similar conversation with the mover of the motion. And what I was saying was, when we want to amend zoning, we think long and hard about it. The product you see before you is many hours of work, not only on the part of legal, but on the part of other people as well. To then take that and amend it on the floor when we're only amending a small section of the King Street overlay district is difficult at best. So what I can tell you is I understand the amendment that's moved. I understand where he changes the 6 stories to 4 stories and the 75 feet to 60 feet. 50 feet. You sure? Okay. What I can't tell you, and what I don't have time to do, and is too difficult in this situation, is to go through the entire 15-page bylaw and make sure there aren't unintended consequences in there. So it's not that you can't act on this, that's just the difficulty you create. And so I think the question is, what happens if we create sections working at cross purposes? The answer is, we will do our best to interpret them, but ambiguities are not good in a zoning bylaw. We don't want ambiguities, and so we usually get the short end of the stick when an ambiguity exists. So that's my best answer as I stand here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes?
Hi, Amy Tarlow Lewis at Omega Way. I don't know if it's possible to just remove this entire article off the warrant completely and then get more information and then come back in May. There's just too many questions and too many concerns, and obviously he can't do his due diligence, so why don't we just put this aside and come back later with better information?
Well, this article was on the warrant, and there is a motion that's on town meeting currently.
So can I make a motion to remove this off the warrant?
No, the warrant was published like a few weeks ago. If someone really didn't like it, you could vote it down. You could vote it down, or you could make a motion to postpone indefinitely, and then it goes away as well.
Can I make a motion to postpone this indefinitely?
You may. You may.
I just did. I'd like to
Okay,
make
is
a
there a
motion.
second? Is there a second on that? Well, we've got an amendment pending. Yeah, we've got a motion. Well, I think.
If we vote the amendment, and let's say we pass the amendment,
Yeah, no.
and then we delay, postpone, does the
Yeah.
amendment stick to the postpone?
No, it all goes away. It has to come back anew. It would come back perhaps in May at the annual town meeting as a new article and a new motion. It cancels any action this evening on it. And I think, Council, am I correct, that takes precedence over an amendment on the floor? Motion to postpone indefinitely?
I believe the answer is yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, so there's a motion to postpone Article 9 indefinitely. Is there a second for that? Second?
Question, Mr. Moderator. You have an amendment on the floor. You have to dispose of what is on the floor before you can go to the next.
Yeah, I just asked town council that question.
I think town council's wrong.
Yeah, and then, well, we pay him a lot of money to be wrong, so I hope, he hasn't steered me wrong yet, so I'm confident that the motion to postpone indefinitely takes precedence over any action on the floor, and it would essentially wipe out anything that was done to this point, and it wouldn't guarantee that it would come back. It would have to be proposed again by the planning board or others before it came back to town meeting. So it's been moved and seconded to postpone indefinitely. Do you have?
Yes, Mr.
something to
Moderator.
add, sir? Yes.
Yeah, Neil Peterson, 119 Whitcomb Ave. So if we don't vote tonight, though, the current permit they've approved is going to go through, right? So there are going to be 6-story buildings over at the IBM building if we don't vote tonight, right?
The mill building.
Mill, wherever.
The mill.
So can you turn this, oh, thank you. Oh, he's going to get it.
No,
Can I answer the question?
I'm going to ask town council to clarify the status of the current special permit.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So I believe the question is if this body votes to postpone indefinitely action on this article, what becomes the status of the special permit that's currently been issued?
Correct.
That special permit would be valid. So what I know then is this action ends if the town wished to bring this amendment back, it would have to post a new hearing notice before the planning board. I can tell you that I know the special permit issued before the date of that new hearing notice. That special permit is valid, and they're entitled to build whatever is allowed under that special permit.
So we as a town have to approve this tonight, or else we're... Yes. Thank you.
In other words, folks, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Well, we have a valid motion to postpone indefinitely in a second. So is there discussion on that motion to postpone indefinitely? If not, we'll take a vote.
Thanks. I just had a quick question for Ms. Houston. The 4-story limitation versus the 6-story limitation, is that from ground level up, or does that include subterranean levels or stories?
So you're asking what the plan is for those 6 stories?
No, I'm asking, so when we say 4 stories, or when we say 6 stories, are we talking about 6 stories from the ground up, or are we talking 4 stories, like the mill, for example, is 4 stories from the ground up now, and there's 1 or 2 stories below ground, right?
Correct.
And
So this would actually have a parking garage.
okay.
And so that parking garage would be underground,
Mhm.
and then there would be 6 stories above.
6 stories
And again, that is what is the maximum that is allowed. It can come in at less than that, because they still have to make sure that everything is going to work as planned, and it could come in for less, but that is the maximum of what is allowed. So thank you.
Okay. And regardless of how many stories or number of units, the number of units is dictated by the amount of parking that they can provide on that site.
Correct, because that is what is written in the form-based code, and form-based code is the Village Common zoning district area where that building resides.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have comments to offer on the motion to postpone indefinitely, because that's what...
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Andrew Bowers, 542 Great Road. It seems to me that there's a lot of obfuscation going on here. We don't understand what we're being presented. We have a special permit. That special permit applies to an area that's already zoned. What we're looking at tonight is adding on to that special area. The fact that however misguided it is, the fact that we have a special permit cannot be overcome. But what we can do as town meeting is prevent 6-story buildings from expanding into the area that they want to add to the common zoning. That's my understanding of what we are looking at tonight. So whether or not we vote to continue this indefinitely, we have a special permit, period. All we're looking at is whether we're going to allow more 6-story buildings to be built. And that's what we have to be focused on tonight.
That's wrong. They already passed a common
Okay.
zoning bylaw.
One person at the microphone at a time.
Can I try, Jerry Del Priore, can I try and sort this out? Apparently, a special permit was already issued that allows 6 stories. If we postpone indefinitely, that stands. They can build that forever and ever. If we decide to modify or amend this article to cut the height restriction, to cut the height limit down, then that nullifies that special permit. And if they have to get when they get a new special permit, it would be capped by whatever height levels we set tonight. Is that correct, Town Council? Or
Town Council?
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to ask the previous speaker to repeat the last clause.
Could you take another shot at that, Jerry?
Sure thing. If we amend the article tonight and cap the height at a lower level than the 6 stories, does that nullify the existing special permit, and any new special permit would be capped by a lower height that we might set this evening?
The answer is yes, with the proviso, previous speaker, that the permit is issued, the permit was issued after the date of the first notice for this planning board hearing. I believe the answer to that is yes, but I don't have that notice in front of me, and I don't have the special permit that was issued in front of me. I'm told the answer is yes. I have not confirmed it.
Okay, so our only chance of capping building height would be to amend and pass tonight.
Agreed.
Okay, the motion on the floor is a motion to postpone indefinitely. Anyone wish to speak to that?
Based upon
If we're-
everything that I'm hearing, I would encourage everyone to vote no on the motion to postpone the article so that we can adjust the article tonight, put it in place in an effort to try and stop the developer from building the kinds of things that he wants to throw upon us on these other parcels. So that would be my encouragement.
Okay, thank you. All right, yes.
Can I ask a question of Ms. Houston?
Well, if it's
Related to this
to the
amendment,
motion to
yes.
postpone indefinitely, yes.
Oh, no, related to the amendment.
No. There's a motion to postpone indefinitely on the floor. It's been seconded. If no one else has any comments regarding that, we'll take a vote. The consequences of the vote is that it kills this article tonight. Would be considered no more. It would have to come back to a future town meeting. It would have to be brought back by the planning board or some other interested party. It would end consideration of Article 9 right this minute, and we'd move to Article 10. Yeah.
Can I just add one
Okay,
more
yeah.
comment?
Is this related, or is this?
It's related.
It seems like it's always related before it isn't. Yeah.
No, the point is, if we postpone indefinitely, whatever high-density housing has already been approved goes through. If we vote down the postpone indefinitely and modify the zoning bylaw tonight, we have a chance of at least controlling the size and the scope of what's going to get built at 410.
All right, I think we're ready to take a vote. Oh, is this related to the
Yeah,
amendment?
speaking
George?
on the postponement of this,
Okay.
we have to make a decision here tonight as to whether or not we want to postpone it and make the adjustment and let it go through with the 4 instead of the 6. Now, I think it would be wise to vote down the postponement and deal with this issue while we got it on the floor with all the people that are here tonight. Because what I have to say about that is that when the planning board had hearings, none of these people, well, some of them, but most of these people was not there when they made decisions to make it 6. So we need to vote this postponement down, come back and adjust it, and do what needs to be done with all the people here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
All right. I think I heard those comments a minute ago, but...
Yeah, up Grace Yao, Pleasant Street, grew up here in town. I'm astounded that at such an important meeting, town council doesn't have all the paperwork to give us straight answers. Who comes to a meeting without the information that we, the taxpayers, who, by the way, help pay your salary, who are you to come here and not give us all the information about what we're supposed to vote on?
Okay, I think we're going to take a vote now.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
I'm Stacy Lynn Blanco from Dahlia Drive. I don't like to vote on things that I'm not well informed on, and I was wondering if we could put the map up, and I've heard a lot of misleading information. I've lived in this town for 11 years. This is my first town meeting because it's the first one that I've known of. I haven't known about these other votes that have happened. I'm very confused on what is already existing, what we're asking to change. It sounds like the mill building, which is one of these that's supposed to be amended in, already has a special permit on it. Is it the mill building that has the 6-story permit on it already, or is that the old IBM building area that already has it on? I'm very confused on what we're voting on, and I would really like to see it on the map explaining what parcels are what before we make a vote.
Okay, we're going to take the vote on the motion to postpone. If we continue from that point forward, we'll ask that slide to be put back up by the planning board. Okay? All those in favor of a motion to postpone action on Article 9 indefinitely, please say aye. All those opposed? No. Okay, the noes have it. Motion to postpone is defeated. We're now back to discussion on the amendment to paragraph E, sections 2 and 4, the change from 6 stories to 4 and 75 feet to 50 feet. That is the amendment that's before town meeting only, so any other discussion would be out of scope at this point. So, yes.
So through you, could I ask a question of Ms. Houston, please?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the question?
Are there any of the properties that we're expanding into, other than the mill building, that would be affected by the 4 versus 6 story?
No.
Thank you.
Okay. Please identify yourself when you come to the microphone. And if you've spoken to the amendment previously, please let others have a chance. Is
George,
this your first trip on this amendment?
This is my first, Mr. Moderator.
Okay.
George A. Sanders, 672 Great Road. I think, first and foremost, that we, the people of the town of Littleton, needs to set the boundaries here tonight. If that is the way we want it to be for, then it's going to be for. We want to accommodate developers as much as we can. Of course, they like density, no question about that. But if we think something is being put out of place a little bit as far as our community go, and we don't want to see that, and we don't want to live with that, then what you do is at the town meeting, you make the adjustment to what you want, not what the developer wants, what you want. And I'm hearing that you want 4 versus 6. Don't get any simpler than that. So let's do it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the proposed amendments?
Hi, Carrie Lavoie, 3 Stony Stream Lane. So what I'm hearing is that we have an opportunity here, a very small one, to stop a huge building going up at the mills. But we don't know for sure because we don't know the date of that special permit that was passed. How do we find that out tonight so we know whether this is totally moot and I can, go home and go to bed at a reasonable time, or is it something that I should really be fighting for because I can change the path of my town tonight?
I think that question is being worked on presently.
Well, I think we need an answer to have a vote tonight. That's not an acceptable, I don't know. There's a lot of things that we can have in a gray area. This is not one of them. Can we stop the path of the mill building being 6 stories tall tonight? Or can we not? And I did have one quick question. In section E, the maximum density for multifamily residential units, 20 units per an acre. Is that 20 buildings with indeterminate units, or is that 20 units in a building? Because that's a huge difference.
It's 20 units per acre.
Per an acre. So you can have 5 buildings and 4 units in each building kind of thing on an acre? Okay, that was my question. Thank you for your time.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, may I please address the
Yes,
current height
you may.
question? And if you'll allow me a little bit of leeway, because I'll meander for a bit. So let me just talk about the process that we've been through, okay? Because these questions have been asked. So after a public hearing process in June 2022, the Lupoli Companies was granted a special permit at 550 King Street to build a mixed-use development with up to 780 housing units, okay? So of these, 40 of those units are for seniors, seniors with very low incomes. I believe Ms. Napoli talked about this earlier, 30 to 60%.
Mr. Moderator, question. What does her speech have to do with the amendment of
I'm
going
getting
from
to
6
it.
to 4?
Yeah, I'm letting
Okay.
Ms. Houston
I
answer.
just didn't understand.
some of
Thank you for the
many questions
flexibility.
that have come her way.
Additionally, as part of the 780 units, there's another 38 affordable units at or below 80% AMI, which is less than $67,000 for an individual, for perspective. Then, and we've heard all of this in town about how we don't have enough housing in town for our seniors to be able to downsize, for our young adults to be able to come back to the town where they grew up. Well, in addition, of those 780 units, 630 of them are for average income individuals, 80 to 120% AMI, okay? This will be built out over the next 10 years. You're not going to see this go up next week, okay? It's going to go up over the next 10 years. So here's the need for those affordable units. And the only way to get those affordable units, folks, is because we happen to have an inclusionary bylaw that says, hey, developers, for every development you put up, you have to build 10% of affordable housing units. A year ago, the Affordable Housing Trust heard information from Liz Treziak that said that from Littleton, there are 58 applications for family units and 40 applications for units for the elderly and or disabled. We have the need for affordable housing here in Littleton, okay? At 410 Great Road, if the 285 units were to be built, that means an additional 29 units will be affordable units, okay? So that's 40 plus 30 plus 29. We get 107 affordable housing units. We need all of those. So in terms of the height and the reason for it, a couple different things, right? One of them is in order to be able to get that number of affordable housing units, you need the more density. It's just the way that it works, okay? And then the other thing is, if you look at it, that building currently stands at 5 stories already. It's not going to be that different. And so from that perspective, we had also had these conversations back when the 550 bylaw was going into play, okay? We have the photos, we know what it's going to look like, and everybody approved it. It's going to be the same thing across the street. That's it. I came to Littleton 7.5 years ago, and I love this place. And from a historic perspective, the fact that, you know, the Historical Commission is willing to support this decision, I asked the town, there are reasons for this. We didn't just make this up. We're not at the behest of some developer. We're doing this for a reason. And if the town doesn't do this, we have 10,000, a little over 10,000 residents. And thanks to one of our town historians, at the back of the Littleton history book for the 300-year anniversary, there's a chart there that shows that every 10 years we grow by 1,000 residents for the last 4 decades, okay? So it's not like growth hasn't been happening, like suddenly we're just going to stop it. We have family members, we have friends, we have seniors in town who all need this kind of housing. And the additional housing is where we want it. Because guess what? If we don't put it here, developers are going to want to put it somewhere else. So that's what I have to say about the 6 stories. And thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Okay. Thank you. Again,
Can I respond to some of that with some facts?
we're talking, the discussion is on
Well,
the amendment.
this is relevant to the height, because.
I'm sorry?
This is relevant to the height of the building, because the case has been made, we need the height for low-income housing. Littleton is well over its required 10% of low-income housing. We keep getting more low-income housing being promised to us for seniors, but at the last minute, like Weber Village, it suddenly is not for seniors, because then it doesn't count to the low income. So I'm all for senior housing, because I'm 63. I'm going to be a senior here soon, and I'd kind of like to retire in Littleton, but that doesn't mean we should have wholesale growth of any kind. And 10 years is a very short time per person, and you're talking about 1,000 units, in fact, 1,100 units, with God knows how many people. I mean, you're going to have one person per unit. It doesn't work that way. So you can't say that that's within our growth chart. It's not. And our infrastructure does not have the ability to support that kind of growth. It's going to cost us a fortune on our taxes to build those kind of schools and that kind of thing. I'm on the ZBA. I was told there'd be no children coming from Great Road and Wildflower Meadow. There'd be no children coming at all there. Yet every day, 2 full busloads come from there. And that's appropriate. Those are single-family condos, freestanding condos. They're perfect for families. I'm worried.
Mr.
Okay.
Moderator?
Anyone else that wishes to speak to proposed amendment?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
May I please respond? One more thing.
One more time, yeah.
One more thing that's really important. The units that are being built at King Street Common are going to allow for there to be less development at the train station. So that's a whole other thing, and we are going to be required by the state to build 700 units near the train station. And so this allows us to be able to use the units from King Street Common as part of that allocation. Now, I'm just saying, that's another factor to
You know,
consider.
enough of this shouting from the crowd nonsense. You come to the microphone or don't, I don't care. But,
With the existing permit.
no shouting,
With the
please.
existing permit, already permitted at Gate Road, we already have that covered for what can be allowed not to be within a half a mile of the train station.
They don't have that in writing. It's going.
I'm sorry.
By the time they're done, it's going to be 1,500 units. Double the
And
size.
Can we?
I apologize.
Yeah, no, I mean.
They're not telling the truth
Hey,
about everything.
You
I'm
don't,
sorry.
you're not recognized, Mr. Scott. Could we have a line at the microphone? Now, this hovering around it is kind of bugging me a little bit.
I got to box out.
Get in line to talk or don't.
Need to be a little taller.
Okay, go ahead.
So,
You're recognized.
Julie Rupp, New Estate Road. I think Anna actually just answered part of what I was going to ask. And so my question was, if we reduce the capacity at the Common for additional housing, that my understanding is as a commuter rail community is required, are we then looking at more housing at Foster Street, for example? So it sounds like you kind of partially answered that, but if there are limitations regarding a radius or other information, I was just interested in that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize greatly. I was trying to assist over here, so.
I think you had answered some of her question already, but you could quickly restate it.
I'll say it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rupp.
Sure. So my question was just regarding, any, like if we reduce 6 feet to 4 feet, then it reduces the number of units that we can have at the Common at a building that we're already used to that size, granted traffic notwithstanding. Do those units then just get assigned to Foster Street instead because we're a commuter rail community and the state is requiring all commuter rail communities to put in a certain amount of housing, regardless of whether we feel our infrastructure can support it or not? I have kids in the school system. I certainly have concerns, but it seems like the commuter rail community piece is part of our reality, and so if it doesn't go here, it goes at Foster Street instead, for example. So that's my question, and just having our eyes open with some of this planning.
Yes, thank you. I think that right now there are conversations going on March 8th is the next community conversation about the MBTA area for housing, and so I would ask folks to please attend. That's a planning board meeting that is open to the public. As of right now, the discussions that have been had is that 20% of the number that is being asked of us needs to remain within a half-mile area of the train station area, so that would be 150 units.
Yes.
Hi, Grace Yao, Pleasant Street. So you're planning on 4 to 6 stories and meeting that quota for elderly housing. How safe are they going to be with the already overly congested common area? How are they going to get down 4 to 6 flights of stairs, because you can't use an elevator if there's an emergency or fire? And you can't tell me that the one ladder truck we have is going to reach all around that building if the fires on multiple areas. Yeah, we've seen what sprinkler systems do. They do help, but they're not it. We're going to need more police, more schools, more fire, everything, town employees. I mean, I'm all for the elderly housing. I don't think it needs to be 4 and 6 stories high. And why put them at risk at the common when you can't even cross that road any time of the day safely? Crosswalks, whatever. I mean, like I say, I'm all for elderly housing. I think it's disgraceful that Littleton continues to put other things like a library that now we're complaining about how much it costs to heat because the foresight wasn't there to keep the ceilings low. I mean, these are all things that it just seems like you're always putting the cart before the horse, and then, oh my God. You know, think about the elderly. When I'm, in 10 years, when I'm 73, or 71, shit, I'm not gonna wanna be trying to cross the road, 2A and Great Road and everything else, to get to my store, to Donlands, wherever I gotta go. These are things you gotta think about.
Okay, I think we're ready to, I think you've spoken to the amendment before, Jerry, so thank you anyway. I think we're going to move to a vote.
Hi, I'm.
For the, oh, you're new
Yes,
to this
yes,
discussion.
I've
Yes,
been
sir,
waiting.
go ahead.
I'm John Stenstrom. I live on Howard Ave. My family's lived there since 1952. I went to the last town meeting, and I remember everybody was all up in arms about the 35, the height of the building was going to be 35 foot or 38 foot, or, you know, so we thought it maybe be 3 stories, or, and now all of a sudden it's between 4 and 6 stories high. I mean, this seems like, you know, you want us to become like a Cambridge or Boston. I mean, the height of the buildings is just out of fashion for a little town, Littleton. You know, are we going to have to change our name or something now? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I can imagine, I mean, you haven't given us an idea exactly how much the cost is going to be on new fire apparatus. You're talking probably hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars for fire engines, you know, new schools. I mean, my taxes, all elderly people in town are having a hard enough time paying taxes the way they are without thinking of spending more money. And it seems like no matter how many new houses, developments you crowd in, our taxes haven't gone down, they keep going up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we have some additional information from town council regarding this question.
Hi, I'm new as well. Kathleen Cole.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're going to hear from town council first. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So, upon consultation with the planning board chair, the planning board decision on 410 Great Road was issued on December 2nd. The first notice for the hearing for this amendment was December 22nd. The decision precedes the notice, so whatever action you take here tonight, he's got a valid decision.
Okay. All right, yes, ma'am?
So I just wanted to echo what other
If you
folks
just
were
identify
saying.
yourself, please, for the record.
Sure, it's Kathleen Kroll. I live on 8 Spruce Street. I just wanted to echo what everyone else was saying about the fire and police and our emergency services. I have a son who has a chronic illness. And for him, we had a situation, and our police and fire and EMT were there within 8 minutes. You add all of these houses, and my son, I have to give him his rescue meds. It impacts his respiratory system, and they don't get there for a half an hour. That's life and death. So I want to see a plan on how you're going to also implement emergency services improvements if you're going to add this much more people and elderly who require additional emergency services much more frequently. So this is not appropriate. We need to have clear plans, and I have not seen them. If they're there, please show me them. I haven't seen them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, again, the discussion is on the proposed amendments to, so new information only and new speakers only. I see some people haven't left the microphone in like half an hour. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. George Clancy, Green Needles Road. I had sort of a question that I was hoping the selectmen could help us with, and my concern is the relationship between Article 10, which has to do with the gun dealers, and Article 9, which has to do with the zoning district. My sense of it is, if the developer proceeds, then he's going to terminate all of those leases in the mill building, and those gun dealers are going to have to comply with the new bylaw requiring them to get a special permit, which also indicates that you can't have a gun dealer within 500 feet of any other gun dealer. So if you're here because you're concerned about what's going on in the mill building now, I would ask you to consider the relationship between putting at risk the development that's been proposed for that building and your desire to see things change at the mill building. So I guess my question for the selectmen is, if this amendment is passed and the height restriction is reduced from 6 stories to 4 stories, how's that going to affect the project going forward, if at all?
Hello. Thank you for that question, Mr. Moderator, through you. The gun bylaw is separate from this article in as much as it will regulate any gun dealers which begin their business or begin doing business after the bylaw is voted into effect. Therefore, the existing dealers will be permitted to continue as long as their landlord allows them, or as long as they wish to remain in that building. What the owner of that building does with those leases is not up to us. Currently, if under the current bylaws, if the lease is terminated, the gun dealers could look for a location which is available under the existing bylaw. But if Article 10 passes tonight and the leases are terminated, they will have to look for a location which conforms with the new bylaw, which is more restrictive. Does that answer your question?
Okay, thank you. Okay, if I could ask people to get in line, anyone who hasn't spoken, please get in line at the microphone. If I could ask the rest of you to sit down, that would greatly help matters. Yeah, including you, Ed. Yeah, to be honest. Yeah, no, we'll, if you need to speak again, we'll get you up to the microphone. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Peter McLaurin, 517 Newtown Road. Been a resident for over 40 years. I think there's a number of issues here, and I need clarification on it. It seems to me we already had the King Road zoning, and that was approved a number of years ago. And my understanding of the building that heights thin was that the heights would be no more than 4 feet, but as the hill perhaps rolled down, you could have 6 stories to sort of line up with that 4 feet, so no one would really notice the difference. My issue tonight was this expansion, which it seems to me this Article 9 is about, the 2 new parcels that are going to be added, that, in my opinion, if we keep the 6 stories, would totally ruin the character of the inner town. It would destroy the small town feel. So I'm also wondering if these parcels were not approved tonight, would this special permit to this builder who relies on the new zoning to build these buildings, would that still be in effect? I just need clarification on that.
I think council answered that question previously.
Well, does the standards for the village common zone allow for a 6-story building already?
Yes.
It does? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Benny Nachman. I'm from 11 Bumblebee Lane here in town. So based on what town council just told us, it seems to me that amending the height as far as the mill is concerned is completely irrelevant. So, right, it doesn't matter what we say, yes, no, 4, 6, 3, whatever it is, that is going forward. So my suggestion, and what I suggest that we do, is that we leave this amendment. It doesn't matter if it's 4 or 6, because it won't make a difference. My suggestion is that for the other amendments that we are asked to vote on, is to vote no, right? The mill is done, so it doesn't matter what you do. What we can affect is the rest. So just vote no on the rest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir?
Matthew Millard, 18 Deer Run Road, and I move we vote on the amendment.
Okay, thank you. All right, there's no one else in line, so we don't have to vote on the motion to close debate on the amendment. We'll simply move to the vote. No, we've got a motion to close debate. Yeah, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of closing debate on the amendment? Aye. Okay, debate's closed on the amendment. We'll now proceed to a vote on the amendment, which was under paragraph E, the sentences with Roman numeral 2 and 4, where it says a maximum height of 6 stories or 75 feet, to change that to 4 stories or 50 feet in both Roman numeral 2 and 4. Okay, that's the amendment. Is everybody clear on that? Again, it's the blue sheet. It's not your pamphlet. All those in favor of the amendment as stated, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Well, that's pretty close. I think we might want a hand count on that, Madam Clerk. To my ears, it was very close. It's a majority. Yeah. We're gonna do a quick hand count on this. It's a majority vote. So if we've got the same counters available to us, all those.
May I please ask that you clarify what a yes vote means?
Well, a yes vote means we're voting for the amendment. I mean, I was think that's a little, yeah. Okay. All those in favor of the amendment, which means you want to change the 2 instances where it says 6 stories to 4 stories and 75 feet to 50 feet. All in favor of that amendment, please raise your hand until it's been counted by one of the tellers. Thank you.
She's counting them. She's counting.
Move the question. Move the question.
I got 20.
36.
59.
Who else is out there?
Yeah. I got 15.
all those opposed to the amendment, please raise your hand. Keep it raised until you've been counted. All right, we have the totals for the vote. There were 412 votes cast. Requires a majority vote. There were 265 votes in favor, 147 in the negative, so the amendment passes. And I declare that a vote. Thank you very much. So we'll now move to consideration of the main motion as amended. If there's anyone that wishes to speak to the main motion, please come to the center microphone and do that. If you've had enough discussion and you're ready for a vote, I'll entertain that as well.
Jared Alpiori.
Yes, sir.
The main reason we passed the amendment, the main reason we postponing indefinitely was on the slim hope that we could somehow change the special permit that was granted to 410. According to town council, that's a done deal. We cannot change it nor modify it. The current village zoning district has some historic preservation features to it. Without those, buildings like the old general store are at risk of being bulldozed and replaced with God only knows what. I say at this point, we vote this down, and then we as citizens take a much closer look at village zoning, bring this up in front of the planning board, and if somebody decides to reintroduce it at town meeting.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, are we ready for a vote on the main motion? Yes, okay. I'm going to remind you, it requires a 2/3 vote, so again, I'm going to rely on our counters. You're going to get a workout tonight, unfortunately. Okay. Again, it's the motion in the blue handout as amended. So all those in favor of approving Article 9 as presented in the blue amendment handout and as amended moments earlier this evening, please signify by raising your hand, keeping it raised until you know you've been counted by one of the tellers. This is the yes vote. This is in favor of the amended zoning bylaw.
I'm confused. 47.
one? Okay. All those opposed to the adoption of Article 9, as written in the blue handout and as amended, please raise your hand, keep it raised until you've been counted. All right, we'll have the total for you shortly. So in the meantime, we'll move on to the introduction of Article 10, which you'll find again in your white town meeting report handout, not in the blue sheet. And again, it's a proposed zoning bylaw requires a 2/3 vote. And it's been moved and seconded by the planning board that the town vote to approve Article 10 as printed in the warrant. And the planning board has voted 5-0 to support the article, and the select board did not take a position. And I've been a bit remiss if I could get the report from the planning board on the public hearing before we get started, that would be great. So, Mr. Yates, if you have that.
The planning board held a duly noticed public hearing. I have to be closer. The planning board, how's that? Planning board held a duly noticed public hearing on Article 10, Firearms Business Bylaw, on November 16th, 2022. Following the public hearing, the board voted unanimously to recommend Article 10 to town meeting as written in the town meeting report. You all have this report, or should have this report. It's this right here. So we need to go a little bit beyond that in background.
Can I stop you just for 1 second, Jeff, and I apologize, but I just wanted to announce the vote for Article 9. There were 419 votes cast. A 2/3 majority would require 279 votes to pass. There were 217 votes in favor, 202 against, so that the article fails to achieve the necessary 2/3 majority. Thank you. Okay, you can go ahead, Jeff. Thank you.
This issue came before the town by virtue of a Boston Globe article that identified a really large number of gun dealers in our mill building. The first notice of it came up at the September 6th Selectmen's meeting. On September 19th, the planning board held a discussion about potential about a potential bylaw. On October 6th, we held a public discussion about a potential bylaw. On October 25th, we had a draft that was presented for discussion. And on November 16th, we had a public hearing, which, and then on December 14th, it was approved. I see some of you here who are at these meetings. In fact, these discussion meetings were among the most well-attended by the public that I have ever experienced in my 3 years on the planning board. I was really impressed with the considerate, thoughtful, and informed comments that came from the community. And one reason why I'm talking specifically about this process is because the bylaw is really a direct result of these community discussions, and in a way, a direct result of the situation, not in a way, a direct result of the situation at the mill. I do want to point out, as has been pointed out before, that this bylaw would not affect, it is a forward-looking bylaw. It does not affect any of the businesses that are currently in the mill. It only would affect future locations of firearms business. So, we're also at a backdrop of the Second Amendment, which is complicated. We consulted other towns and their bylaws. There are several that have been accepted by the Attorney General's office. We are told there are many, many more towns who are promoting these bylaws. This is a function of Massachusetts state firearms laws. I must admit, I don't think anyone on our board was, familiar with them, and it's a daunting thing to put together something that will address the needs of the community and the ability of people to have firearms in a lawful way. One of the things that you will decide tonight is whether we achieve, whether we achieve that. So if you look at this, I'll note the main points of this bylaw and relate it back to the situation at the mill and the community concerns. One of the major points of discussion was a physical distance to be required between firearms businesses and anything, well, I'll read, residential use, residential zoning district, or mixed-use districts within which residential uses are allowed, public or private elementary school, middle school, or high school, child care facilities, and it goes, you get the gist of what the attention was being paid to what was in the town to create this 500-foot distance. This was not a random thing. We actually did GIS mapping to determine what distance we could do that would still allow a reasonable amount of areas where these businesses could be located. There were many residents who wanted it to be 2,000 feet. People wanted it to be 1,000 feet. And we came up with 500 feet because we could graphically look at the areas that were left where these businesses could be located away from these uses in town. There's, details about the 500-foot distance. The other issue that came directly from the situation at the mill was that we determined we wanted to have a 500-foot distance, and I say we, I mean the community who came to these discussions wanted a 500-foot distance between gun businesses. And this came about because of the perception that at the mill, the close proximity of dealers was conducive to illegal gun activity. Whether that occurs, I don't know, but that was the concern and the perception. So this bylaw says gun businesses cannot be co-located in the same building and need to be 500 feet away from each other. Now, the other issue is that we determined that we wanted gun businesses. One of the things we heard over and over again, how did this happen? Why didn't we know? Why didn't the town do something? This and that. Well, this isn't something that's typically collected when businesses open in town. these businesses were treated just like any other business. So what this bylaw would do is say that gun businesses need special consideration. They need what's called a special permit to operate under certain conditions, and when the permit is applied for, various considerations of safety, the people who are opening the businesses, several it's spelled out in here, can be assessed. And that, as I said, comes directly out of community concerns and the specific situation at the mill. So those are, you know, and that special permit allows review of security of the actual people. They have to be actual people who are running these businesses, and various other things. And once again, with a special permit, it means that that there may be some situations where, well, whatever, that, it'll be a hearing, it'll be a public hearing, people can come to these hearings and pass judgment on those particular applicants. So those are the high points of this. There is detail. It's accepted that maybe in the detail things may need to be tweaked, but I would point out that there are other businesses in town that are treated this way. We have an adult use bylaw. I don't think many of you would be aware of it, but we have a zoning that allows for adult use because we were told many years ago that if you don't specifically locate adult uses, then they could be anywhere in the business. So that is something that we already do. We have cannabis businesses that are that follow a similar thing with a special permit, a vetting, hearings, security, police. We have the selectmen are in charge of liquor licenses. So this is not unprecedented. It's an extension of what we have done with other businesses that the community has decided needs some special consideration. That being said, I think as I said, many people participated in this. And I also want to say there were people at the meetings who spoke up for their for their concern for the Second Amendment. It's a reasonable consideration, and in the view of what is happening around these type of laws, we don't feel that we have infringed on those. That's our opinion. People can have a difference of opinion. But I think, once again, I want to go back. I've said it many times. This was a process of a community discussion that went on over a period of several months. Many of you came, and now is the time to either vote on this or not.
Okay. Thank you. All right, the floor is now open to comments on this proposed bylaw. Yes.
Julie Sider. Hello? I'm Julie Sider, Harwood Avenue. Just a procedural request that I understand requires a second. I ask that these votes be hand tallied and make sure that registered voters in the town of Littleton only are voting on this issue.
Okay, I interpret what you're asking for is a vote by ballot and
yes,
checklist?
Correct.
Similar to how it was done for voting for debt. Okay, is there a second to that? Second. Okay, the moved and second. It requires a majority to fix the method of voting. And this is a request to fix the method of voting for Article 10 as a ballot and checklist vote, just so that everybody understands that's what a majority vote would entail. And if it fails, we go on with the debate. And again, it's a two-thirds zoning vote, just like the last one. I would, if it comes down to my decision, I would do it by hand count at the end of the day, but town meeting is within its rights to request
If I may,
the ballot and checklist.
Mr. Moderator, if I may, I witnessed people coming in the door, not stopping in to be as registered voters, not checking in. I know there are people here who are not registered voters in the town of Littleton. I want to be sure that only people who live in the town of Littleton are permitted to vote on this issue.
Well, if and when the time comes, the town clerk has made provisions to recheck in everyone before they're allowed to cast a ballot on this issue. So
Again,
the question's been thought of, and you know, it's well taken that only registered voters should be voting. Correct. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to conduct this vote by ballot and checklist. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, those opposed? Okay, the majority is pretty clear on that one. We will conduct the balloting by, the vote by ballot and checklist at the end of the discussion of the article. Okay, any wish to discuss the merits of Article 10 rather than the method of voting? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Jason Hale. I live on Birch Road. As a former journalist, I kind of knew that the planning board would say that a lot of this topic came up from that Boston Globe article. And like I said, as a former journalist and someone who's covered gun stories in the past, I know there are certain elements that always seem to get short shrift when it comes to gun stories. So I'd like to kind of talk about what the process is in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for obtaining a firearm. The federal firearm licensees, those are what we're referring to as gun dealers here in the town of Littleton, doing business in the town and throughout the Commonwealth are all licensed at both the federal and the state level, are required to keep meticulous records that are subject to audit by the ATF, have been interviewed by their chief of police, have been fingerprinted, and have those prints on file with the State Firearms Record Bureau, and all of their transactions are required to be recorded in a state database as well as be approved through a federal electronic background check. In addition, every single person who goes into that mill to buy a firearm, I lost my train of thought, with whom these small businesses transact must be licensed by the state, must also have been interviewed by their chief of police, must also have their fingerprints on file with the State Firearms Record Bureau, must also have each firearm transaction run through the FBI's National Instant Criminal Background Check System. A failure to perform any of these steps can result in a felony, which would instantly mean the loss of the right to possess and sell firearms, the loss of voting rights, and substantial prison time. The people doing business in the mill aren't shady characters in trench coats, lurking in the shadows, looking to break laws. Every transaction has to be recorded and processed through the FBI. If you don't, you're a felon. If you're a felon, you can't do business when it comes to firearms. It's very cut and dry. I'm not a gambling man, but I would be willing to bet that firearms transactions are the most scrutinized transactions in the Commonwealth. And I know our colleague from the planning board mentioned our legal marijuana and our liquor sales. I don't think when I go to buy a six-pack of beer, they're running my fingerprints through an FBI database. I think they're apples and oranges when it comes to this case. And the presumed zoning bylaws that we're voting on tonight won't make Littleton any safer. They will ensure, however, that Littleton conducts fewer background checks when it comes to purchasing firearms. I personally don't think that's going to make the town of Littleton any safer. And that leads to my question. Is it the opinion of the planning board that the federal and state laws concerning the sales of firearms don't go far enough to protect the citizens of Littleton, and that these zoning laws are needed for public safety reasons, or are these proposed zoning laws purely punitive, a way of telling certain small business owners in this town that your kind isn't welcome here? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I was asked a question and I want to answer.
Yeah, you'll get a chance. Mr. Yates.
So we don't have an opinion about federal gun laws. That's not our good. We are responding to a community concern about a national reputation for gun dealers in our small town. Now, whether you like that or not, that was the case. And the other case was, Mr. Journalist, several weeks ago, a Littleton gun dealer was arrested for providing a gun that was used in the shooting in Boston. Now, that brings up, yes, there are, and you know,
All right,
yes,
enough. Hey.
yes,
One at a
there
time.
are controls, but the more volume of transactions that are going on in town will mean the greater probability of transactions going under the radar. It's a matter of probability.
Hey. If you wish to speak, please come to the microphone, otherwise just shut up.
One second, I want to...
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Yates, are you?
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sanders, yes.
Mr. Moderator, George Sanders, 672 Great Road. First and foremost, I want to commend the Select Board for moving fast and the Planning Board for moving fast on what many members in the community had a great concern about the number of dealerships that was there on 410. It's irrelevant as to how we got to where we are now. What's important is the fact that we are taking action in our town. What we are doing is for the benefit of the people that live in this town that spoke up, and the Select Board and the Planning Board listened to what they had to say. I will give you credit for listening to the people. We are the ones that are confronted with it. We don't care what the other community is doing. We care about Littleton. And that's what's important to me here in Littleton. Going forth, we're going to designate certain areas in the community, and rightfully so, there should be areas that are designated in this town for certain things. Making sure that they're away from our school, away from homes by a certain distance. It's a small town, and there seems to be the concern that in a small town, you don't have the right to say and do what you want. What we do. It belongs to Littleton. It belongs to the citizen in Littleton. I think that it is a good thing that we're doing what we're doing. And I wholeheartedly support it and say that we're moving forward, and it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. There'll be some displacement, but at the same token, there's always displacement going when you got a business. So having the guns, my main concern with what they were doing is not for the town to violate the people's right. That is the most crucial thing there is not to violate their right. But at the same token, we have rights, and we're exercising it here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
Mr. Moderator, George Clancy, Green Needles Road. I have a question either for the presenter or town council, or perhaps both, having to do with the bullet point that reads, zoning is forward-looking only and cannot by law impact existing firearms businesses. So hypothetically, if that's the case, and 30 of the current businesses in the mill decide to find a new location and set up shop at a single new location, they would not be subject to the 500-foot separation portion of the new bylaw?
If they're setting up a new business, they could not co-locate. Oh, if they're setting up a new No? If they're, can you hear? I'll yell.
Let's get on the mic.
They cannot co-locate.
Jeff.
I don't know, it's the green light's on. Okay, you can hear me now. They cannot co-locate. You can't take an existing business and relocate under this new zoning bylaw without conforming to the new bylaw. I mean, Tom, yeah, okay.
Mr. Moderator, through you to the previous speaker. So if I understand the question you're asking, you're looking at the bullet point, zoning is forward thinking. I think the meaning of that is that currently existing firearms businesses in town would not be rendered prohibited if we adopt this bylaw. They become pre-existing non-conforming businesses. They are allowed to continue operating in their current location. If they want to change that location, they would then be, assuming we pass this bylaw, they would then be subject to the new bylaw.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, ma'am?
Yeah, I just want to say that as the mill right now,
Oh, I'm sorry, could I ask you to identify yourself for the record?
Erica Pudmorny, 6 Fox Lane.
Thank you.
It's the biggest conglomeration of dealers in the country. We're Littleton, Massachusetts. We shouldn't be the biggest anything. You know, I love coffee, but we shouldn't have 83 shops in town. We're not trying to limit anyone's rights. We're just limiting where in town they can be. Do we want to just leave it open so that it can continue to grow unchecked? This is our chance to make a decision about where we want these businesses to be and how we want them to operate. It's not saying they can't be here, and it's making sure the growth doesn't continue unchecked. The other thing I wanted to say is that the reason for the 500 feet away from each other is these businesses, although there are some bad actors, maybe, that even when they're operating legally, there are loopholes. And a lot of these businesses are openly stating that they're willing to go through those loopholes and that they are working together to provide weapons that we as a state have said we don't want in our state. You can buy most of the gun at this place, but it's not really a functioning assault rifle because it doesn't have all the parts. But if you go next door, you can get it, and then you have the weapon that you can't legally buy in Massachusetts. And it is all legal. But is that what we want in our town? As a state, we've said no. I think as Littleton, we should say no to that too. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Bobby Dressel, 16 Adams Street. So I want to reflect upon a bunch of little things, kind of connect a few dots. We just spent over an hour, maybe it was 2, maybe it was 10, talking about 4 levels or 6 levels for a building, okay? We care about our community. We care about what we're known for. Are we going to be known for being the city of Littleton or the town of Littleton, okay? Or are we going to be known for being the place that has the most guns co-located under one roof. Okay? That's headline 1 from the Boston Globe. Another headline, some Littleton gun dealer is connected with a killing in Boston and has been federally arrested. So I want to speak to the issue of there being shady characters. There are some shady characters. There's one of them, okay? You can't tell me there are no shady characters. I'm not saying everyone who sells a gun is a shady character, but I'm saying that proves to me that yes, there is a shady character at the mill who sold a gun in a straw purchase so it could get to a gang member, and not only did he do that, but he sold it in parts, so it was within that loophole, as Erica said. Oh, he didn't do anything illegal there, so he sold 2 parts of a gun to come together, and there was a shooting, and he was arrested. Someone said, look, they did their job, they arrested him. Is that what we want to be known for? Okay, well, hey, we have people who do bad things, but hey, they get arrested, so that's okay. That's not what I want Littleton to be known for, okay? And again, we're not saying we are banning guns, we are taking away your constitutional rights. We are saying we do not want to be known as the #1 place in the country to have this same number of gun owners under one roof. We are saying we want it to be away from schools, away from churches, away from children. I don't think that's too much to ask. Let me see. Oh, another important thing to understand as well. When people say, oh, they followed the rules, they get checked, the federal ATF had to come in here to do checks because Boston was overwhelmed. Boston said, we cannot investigate the mill because that's more than all of New England combined. We need help. That's not normal. That's not Littleton.
Yes.
Megan Rank, 6 Green Needles. I just want to say it's late. I'm tired. Firearms recently became the #1 cause of death for children in our country. I certainly don't, with that in mind, I do not want to be the town in this country that has the largest number of firearm businesses. I do not want to be the community that has ATF in our community. I do not want to have what happened about a month and a half ago, where I went to pick up my son at music class and a door was wide open and I was staring in at a shop's supply of guns at the mill. 7:30 at night, I'm there picking up my son and I am looking at a wall of weapons. That's not Littleton to me. That is not a safe community. What this bylaw will do is it is not taking away anybody's guns. It is not infringing on anybody's Second Amendment. It is trying to get some common sense, because this is absolutely absurd that we have this many gun dealerships in this town that we are losing control of. And it's late and I'm tired and I just want to be able to go home tonight and tell my kids that I did something about the gun violence in this country.
Yes, sir.
Jared L. Peoria, New Estate Road. Just a couple of things. Before this got publicized, you drive by the mill, few people, there's no way to tell from the outside that there was even any gun shops in there. And my guess is if there's 60 of them, they're all little one-person operations. What this bylaw will not do is do a darn thing about gun violence. If you don't buy your guns in Littleton, you can buy them in Ayer. You can buy them in Groton. You can buy them in Pepperell, anywhere. You can even go up to New Hampshire. What it does do is put very restrictive rules on any new gun shops, and probably so restrictive that legally you could set up, but practically you'd be a darn fool to even try. I'm just going to leave it at that.
All right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yep, Mr. Moderator, Greg Stohovic, Foster Street. Just want to thank the Planning Board for the diligent work in proposing this common sense bylaw. You've been responsive and you've been thoughtful in this process, so I just want to acknowledge that. It's been a lot of work. We've already covered some of the headlines that Littleton's known for now. I came here tonight, Googled Littleton before I came, and sure enough, some of the headlines that were already mentioned come right up as the first things that represent our town, which, I think we've already covered. Being known for the biggest collection of gun dealers is a pretty sad thing to be known for. We've covered CDC and their stats of guns being the leading cause of death in children. Additional research study from 2003 to 2019 looked at county-level data nationwide and concluded that when the number of gun dealers in a given area went up, the number of gun homicides in that area also increased in subsequent years. This is real. This is research you can look up. It's factual. It's statistical. I encourage people to do their homework and really understand the issue. Without passing this bylaw tonight, gun dealers can continue to operate inside and right next to residential buildings, next to schools, playgrounds, daycare centers, and houses of worship. We don't have anything in place that prevents that. Dealers will continue to operate in the shadows without being required to have a physical or proper public storefront, because what goes on in the mill is not a retail mall. They don't have to post any business hours. It's not a legitimate business. Dealers will continue to operate without specific requirements for securing their weapons or providing security for their buildings. The police check the permit, they check the inventory. We don't have anything on the books that requires the dealers to manage their weapons or secure them. Gun dealers will continue to be able to display signage, which there's some in town already, with firearms, ammunition, or other gun-related images. This is what will continue to exist if we don't pass this bylaw. The number of gun dealers operating out of a single location will continue to have no limits. So we could have the current mill, we could have another 50 gun dealers operating in another building in another part of town. I'm begging all of my fellow residents to do the right thing, pass this common sense bylaw. Mass shootings, including school shootings, are an epidemic in this country, and Littleton is not immune. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Abigail Hartzell, 24 Deer Run Road. I was born in 1999. I've grown up in the world of school shootings and gun violence in America, so I don't think it's like a large secret of what my feelings on guns are, but I want to just give 3 reasons that aren't really directly related to that of why this article and this amendment is really a good one. So the first one is inspections. The sheer number of gun dealers that we have in the mill right now, it's oppressive to our police department and the ATF to be conducting inspections in a timely manner that they're supposed to. Our police chief has been quoted saying that we are missing violations, and this is a huge issue. If we lower the density and the number of gun dealers we have in town, we can actually allow our police and the ATF to do their jobs. And I don't really know why anyone would not want that. The second is economy. The argument that people didn't know about these gun dealers being in the mill before doesn't really say anything to me except for the fact that they're not good for the town of Littleton and its economy. We could have businesses in there that could be bringing in a lot more people. If you had a cafe in there and you didn't know it was in there, would anyone say that that business is doing a good job or providing to the taxes and our economy of the town? Probably not. And the third is honestly the environment and accessibility. So we're talking about not having gun dealers within 50 feet of schools, playgrounds, etc., and residential areas. And if we don't have those there, we could have other businesses and places that people could walk to. We have a very car-centric state, country, and especially town. I came in here when this place was like a third full and every single parking spot in the area was taken. We rely on cars so much. Let's not rely on cars so much. Let's reduce traffic, have it so that students who don't have cars, people who cannot afford to have cars, can walk to places that they're not going to be buying guns. We've all agreed someone who's under 18 is not going to be buying a gun. Why would they need a gun dealer there? Let's put something else that they can go do and participate in the economy in. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Jim Wilson, 6 Nancy's Way. As others have said, the previous article got a lot of discussion. People are very concerned about what goes on in town, and in particular, the new building of new units. So my question is, and this, make no bones about it, this bill will, over time, remove all of the gun shops in the mill. What's going to go there instead? Right? Is there a lineup of coffee shops and bookstores that want to fill those spaces, or will it now be empty and now it'll be developed into new housing units? Right? So the alternative is not fun things you can walk to. The alternative is new apartment buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Liz Hohenschel, 92 Colonial Drive. I just wanted to come up and I first wanted to applaud everyone who has put in the time and effort on both sides of this. I think everyone has respected opinions. But I also want to point out and thank our police chief and our police department who do their due diligence when processing this. I work for a municipality. The gentleman, as he was referred to as the journalist, he's correct. There's a lot of things that go into that. So I respect both sides of it. I'm not here to offer that. But I do think we need to stop, pause, recognize what is being done, and everyone can learn from each other's opinions. It's not one or the other. I happen to be a person that has her LTC, but I don't own a gun. But it is my right. So that's how my personal feeling is. And Mr. Moderator, I'd like to call this to a vote.
Well, I think the fact that you were the last in line. You can't give a speech and then call the question. So after we hear from this person, we'll have the vote. How's that? Yes, go ahead.
I'm Kathy Harris. I live at 185 Mill Road. This is all new to me, the Boston Globe article. And I read a subsequent article that says the ATF sweep came months after residents and local politicians first demanded greater scrutiny of the burgeoning gun hub in the light of the Globe investigation, and found many dealers there were openly exploiting loopholes in state gun laws and violating then Attorney General Maura Healey's directive. And I'm just wondering, I don't know that that's a town issue and what the town has to say about that, or it's law enforcement, but I'd like to hear more about that issue.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think, well, I see someone else coming to the microphone. Hey, how about, yeah, are we ready for that, Bill?
Bill Cole, 573 King Street. I'd like to move the question, please.
Thank you. All right. I think there was no one else in line, so I'm going to take that as we're ready to go to a vote. I'd like to ask the town clerk to explain how she'd like this ballot and checklist to work for all of us. So if you want to take this.
In order for this to work properly and orderly, we're going to ask you all to have a seat, nobody to move. You're going to have to recheck in. So when you check, go up and check, you're going to get a slip like this. It says yes and no, plain and simple. If you're going to vote for it, you're going to tear it in half, and you're going to take the yes. You're going to walk across the gym to your left, and there's 4 boxes, and you're going to put the yes into one of the boxes. If you're going to vote no, you're going to put the no vote. At this time, anybody whose last name begins with A through C, please go and check back in.
We're good to go? I see myself, so. Okay, we have totals to announce for Article 10. And I think the clerk's office did a great job handling that balloting and count. So I'll tell you that there were 445 ballots cast. The two-thirds majority is 297 votes required. There were 312 votes in the affirmative, 133 in the negative, so that the proposed bylaw does indeed pass by the necessary two-thirds. And I thank you all for hanging in with us. And right before I entertain a motion to dissolve, I just again want to thank the town clerk and her team. Yeah, not yet. And LCTV for going above and beyond today with some extra setup. And as always, the town administrator and assistant town administrator and finance team, finance committee, and the board. With that, I'll entertain a motion to dissolve. All right, second? Second, okay. Not debatable. All those in favor? Aye. We stand dissolved. Thank you.